for me tonight. I spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Lord, who's on my right?
Hello, wackos. Welcome to another episode of Without a Country. I'm Corinne Fisher. I'm going to try to keep the microphone here. Is this close enough, Mike, do we think? Because when I was touching it a lot last week, I sometimes heard it when I touched it, and I don't like that noise. I don't think it was that bad on YouTube, but I don't want to like overly touch. Like when I had it in my lap, like you can hear me sometimes moving it. So this is good distance, we think?
Yeah, this is good speaking volume.
This is good. I like it really close, but, you know, I think this is better.
The closer you get, the more ASMR it becomes.
Well, that's my favorite. Don't tempt me with a good time, Michael. I love ASMR. It's the only reason I have a TikTok. Yeah, no, this one I feel like picks up a little bit better than the guys we fucked Studio One. It needs to be like this close. Okay, so... I just got this email literally as I'm sitting here. So first of all, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. This is Without a Country. If you're new to the show, we've been getting a consistent, 100 or so new subscribers to the YouTube channel every week, which is excellent. Slow and steady wins the race. I love it. Consistent growth of people who are interested in news not from a big corporate source. Obviously, I'm getting information from corporate sources, but I'm looking all over the internet, looking at smaller local news outlets, bigger news outlets, right, left, center. So that's kind of what we're doing on this show. If you're new to us, thank you so much for subscribing. If you've just come across us now, hit that subscribe button. It's free to you, and it makes a world of difference to me and Mike, who is our incredible producer. He is, in America for the time being, but it's moments until he departs for his European life. So yeah, I just got this email, and I'll promote this at the top of the show. So there's she is a wacko. She's probably a fucker too, but she's also a wacko specifically. And I think her seeing me on this show and definitely running for mayor, I think are some of the things that I just added the mayor part. I don't know. I think she said that in the email that made her think that I would be good for this really cool panel at South by Southwest. If you're not familiar with South by Southwest, it's a really famous, film festival, but they also do comedy, they do music, they do all kinds of things, and they have these really cool informational panels, kind of like, a TED Talk kind of energy to it. And a couple years ago, I was supposed to be at South by Southwest, but then it ended up conflicting with Moon Tower, and for just various reasons, we ended up doing Moon Tower. But I really, really, really wanted to go to South by Southwest for a long time. So this is, I'm on a panel that is part of the South by Southwest panel picker, or I'm eligible to be on this panel. And we need help voting for it, basically. So I didn't know that some of the panels are picked by, people who would possibly go to this festival, or who are just people in the world who want to decide who has voices and who doesn't. A real democracy. And voting is open until August 25th. So they've asked me to share this information with you, but I also really want to do this. And, I'll obviously do shows in Texas while I'm there. So if you're in Texas, it would really behoove you to do this. This is festivals in Austin. But it would be for the festivals in March. But again, voting happens now. These panels are being decided now. So it's called The Clown Kings of Culture: When Comedy Shapes Reality. and I would be a panelist on this, along with a guy named Tommy Means, who is the Mechanism Chief Creative Officer, and Mechanism is the company that asked me to be on this panel. So I'll include the link in the show notes. I'll put it all over my Instagram and stuff, but please take a moment to vote for me. It would be a really exciting opportunity. And then obviously, I'm guessing these things are taped, so I'm sure there would be some way to access it. I can't imagine in 2025 there wouldn't be a way to access this digitally after, for those of you who won't be at the festival, can't attend, etc. Wanted to get that out of the way. Of course, follow me on social media at Philanthropy Gal. Follow Mike at Them Harrington. Also, we went to Mike's Armored Combat show what was that? That was last week, and it was so fun. It was so fun. I knew I would like it, but if you're in New York, or if they do Armored Combat where you are, I like, it's just, we're always looking for new things to do, especially like in-person things that aren't incredibly expensive. Obviously I got comped, but thank you, Mike. But it was like $40, which I think for the length of the show and the energy and the venue was really cool. It was just something. It was interesting. It was a little bit Renaissance fair. It was a little bit UFC. I think and I was also surprised. Not to be rude, but I thought everyone there was going to be a huge dork, but there were some like really cool, sexy tattooed people.
A lot of hot people at the Armored events,
yeah.
Corinne. A lot of hot people.
Yeah, I was kind of stunned how hot the people were. And of course there were nerds there too. And like I tend to enjoy things where the audience is nerds, horror conventions, Renaissance fairs. Like, that's who I am. Where things that cool people, or in quotes cool people, go to, it's just very not. It's not things that I enjoy. But so I was just very alarmed to also see hot people there, who I'm sure are nerds on the inside, but they were hot as hell. And I was like, wow, this is great. There was like clowns balancing, a jester maybe balancing a sword on his hand. It was so entertaining. The battles were ferocious.
That sword was being raffled off.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, hey, I'm going to do tricks with this sword all night, and you, people who've been drinking all night, can play with this at the end of the show for a $1 raffle ticket.
For sure. It was blunted, though, at the end. Like, it wasn't, it wasn't a sharp end, but still, you could smack someone with it and do a lot of damage.
As you saw in the fights.
Yeah. No, it was really fun. And I also liked that everyone had kind of their own unique armor that they were wearing. And, I like when people are able to show their personality even as they're beating the crap out of each other. It was also super respectful. It wasn't the kind of fighting where you're like, okay, these people actually might not like each other. I thought it was real good. And the woman who was, is she like the referee? What's the
marshal?
Word? The marshal. So is her pronoun she, her, or I couldn't,
I'm not going to take this person's name is Shan. That's all I know about this person.
Oh, I thought you knew them. No. Okay, so
no, I got everything except that. That was the one thing where I'm like, I'm not going to ask you your pronouns ever. If you want to tell me, go for it. But if you tell me your name's Shan, I'm just going to call you Shan.
Shan. Okay. Well, I mean, I feel like if your pronoun is not the one that we would guess, you usually, and someone needs to address you, usually, like, especially if it's they, them, someone would say. Anyway, doesn't really matter. Shan was doing an incredible job. And yeah.
Founder of the Dallas Mystics, the first women's boo-hurt team, a 2-time medalist on the world stage with that team.
Oh, well, if she was a women's team, then I'm guessing her pronouns are she, her.
I would assume, but who knows?
Right. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, it was a really fun time. So I just wanted to give my honest opinion and feedback on that. I had a great time. So check that out. And then Los Angeles, if you are in town on October 22nd, which is a Wednesday, I'm going to be at the Comedy Store doing the Halloween version of Gash. They can't get enough of me, baby. They request. I didn't even ask. They asked me. That felt good. So yeah, I'll be doing Gash again. I'm so excited for that. Always a really fun time. I'll be putting together a splendid lineup of Los Angeles-based comedians. And I think that's all the kind of the housekeeping that we need to get to right now. We have a really packed show. Obviously, every week is a packed show when you're living in Trump's America. I was literally getting, texts about articles from my mom, who also, I'm going to give my mom a producer credit on this show. She gets very involved, and it's super helpful. This is definitely a community effort to keep tabs on everything that's going on in our crazy world. We all have different algorithms. So as much as I follow, it's definitely super helpful when people send me things just in case I miss it. Also a PSA, because this is not for New Yorkers. This is actually for anyone besides New Yorkers, because New Yorkers, we don't do this shit. But if you're visiting New York City, please enjoy your stay. We love tourists here. Like, we act like we don't, but like for the most part, New Yorkers, we don't go to the places the tourists go anyway. So you're just helping fund our city, and we appreciate it. And New York City makes a lot of money off tourism every year, and it's a wonderful city. And I highly, highly recommend you visiting. It's also like, it's not scary the way that they make it seem on Fox News. I always say I would feel so comfortable, and I do feel so comfortable walking around by myself at 2:00 in the morning here. I would never do that in my hometown in New Jersey. So that being said, enjoy your stay in New York City, but please, 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 no matter how cinematic it looks, no matter how fun you'll think it'll look on Instagram, if you visit New York City, please do not ride the carriage horses. I don't want to, it's sad that I have to put this on the shoulders of the tourists, but if the tourists stopped riding the carriage horses would stop existing. And yes, our elected officials should be passing and should have passed riders law a long time ago, but they haven't. So if we just cut the funds to the people doing the carriage horses, and this is like under 200 people make their living. The Carriage Horse Commission, or whatever the hell the name of the official name of it is, they claim it's 300 individuals. I looked into this a lot when I was running for mayor. It's 200 or less estimated, and estimates are like 200 was a generous estimate that I was doing. It's closer to most likely 140 to 150 individuals making their living from being in the carriage horse industry. And I do want to be empathetic towards them, but also, you shouldn't be making your money in a cruel and abusive industry. So I can't have that much sympathy for you. That being said, there are plenty of jobs available in New York City. So many places are hiring. So we definitely have places where these people can make a living. But we need to undo the carriage horse industry completely. It needs to be dismantled. Another carriage horse died, named Lady. A 15-year-old horse collapsed and died in Midtown. I believe this was yesterday.
Are we bringing this up?
What do you mean? Are you bringing up the video?
No, I have the photo.
Yeah, bring up the photo. Absolutely. It's heartbreaking. It's almost the same exact thing that happened to Ryder a couple years ago, which, created outrage. But there's so many things that happen. Like, it's very hard to sustain outrage, which is why, I always say pick an issue, right? So I've been talking about Ryder's Law for a long time. It was something that I was going to try and start getting done literally day one in office. Obviously, animal rights advocates are really good about staying on issues, but there's so much going on in this city that it's hard to push things through. So this is something that, I looked into the main people. Obviously, the mayor would ultimately have to sign off on it. But we need city council, and there's just not enough city council members right now who are talking about it. And then specifically, the person who I really believe is stalling this is the New York City Health Committee Chair, Lynn Shulman. So if you want to contact her on social media, it's at Lynn4NYC, the number 4. So it's LYNN, the number 4NYC. That's her handle on both Instagram and X. And just put some pressure on her. If you're in New York City and you're interested in keeping up to date with what's happening with animal rights, I do recommend following and also subscribing to the newsletter for VFAR, which is Voters for Animal Rights. They do really good emails specifically. They have an Instagram, but I actually, this is an email that when I get it, I pretty much always read it. I feel like they're concise. They tell you what the issue is, who you need to contact, what's going on, if you want to donate. Pretty great. And obviously, if you're in New York City, you can call your local representative in the New York City Council and urge them to co-sponsor and pass Riders Law Intro 967, which would ban horse carriages. And you could say, hello, my name is Corinne Fisher, and I'm a constituent of council member, whatever it is. I am calling today to share my outrage and sadness about yet another horrific and preventable death of a carriage horse here in New York. Lady, a 15-year-old horse collapsed and died in Midtown yesterday. This is unacceptable in 2025. It's unacceptable anytime, but I see what they say. The days of horse and carriages are over is what they're implying. Please support bringing Riders Law to a vote to outlaw horse carriages so that these tragedies stop happening in our city. And so that language was provided by VFAR, which is great. Like, I love when they provide a script. Obviously, you can, as Paula Abdul would say, make it your own, be polite, but be firm. Let them know that, this is absolutely unacceptable in a city. Like New York or anywhere, really, I guess, unless it's like Amish country. I don't really know where this is acceptable. And they shouldn't be dying there either. But I think, hopefully they're getting treated better in Amish country because horses are more a part of life, not just kind of a novelty. Then they go on to say the power to end this is with the New York City Council. There are currently 18 council members who are co-sponsoring Riders Law, but we need 34 council members to co-sponsor in order to force a committee hearing. This is one of those ones where it's just like, why is it taking this long? It's certainly for people who are being elected in New York City, again, no New Yorkers use horse and carriages. Like, we would get laughed out. First of all, we would get laughed out of the city if an actual New Yorker tried to get in a horse and carriage and wave around in Central Park. It would be actually embarrassing to be caught doing that as a New Yorker. So just know it is the most wild tourist fake influencer behavior of all time, just in case embarrassment works on you. And furthermore, like I said, for the actual New Yorkers it does affect, it's an extremely low number. And there have been alternatives pitched, like electronic carriages. But again, there's plenty of employment available in the city right now. So there's just no excuses for this going on. And the photo is so sad. There's a video. I didn't see the video, but apparently there is a video where the horse collapses and then they just dragged the horse's body into the trailer, and then the horse ended up dying. Also, there's a lot of investigative work that PETA and groups like that do, where you see the conditions that these horses live in, and it's just not good. They're overworked, and then when they go back home to relax, in quotes, the conditions are absolutely not good. It's really pretty disgusting. So would love to get this handled. It's something I've talked about a lot of times before. Actually, Justin Silver is the one who brought it to my attention earlier this morning. I think he texted me because he was like, yeah, my friend was running for mayor, and this was one of the issues that she was going to really hone in on. And New York Post even did an article, Carriage Horse Dies on NYC Street in Horrifying Scene, nearly 3 years to the day that distressed rider collapse. And there's some, oh my God, there's some quotes from people. Someone said, quote, dead when she hit the ground. The eyes seem to be open, but I don't know. Again,
you want me to pull this video up?
You can pull it up. It's just so sad. We don't need to be doing this to animals. And again, it's purely for novelty. Purely for novelty. It's just so sad. And also, they're overworked, they're collapsing, it's too hot, they're pulling too much weight, they're working long hours, bad living conditions, they have to go by traffic and bicyclists, and it's chaos, and they're scared, it's crazy. A 26-year-old bystander named Alex says, I couldn't help but see its muscles jiggled and its tongue was rolling on the ground. It looked completely dead. I mean, its eyes were open and unblinking the whole time. She was dead when she hit the ground. Someone thinks the horse might have had an aneurysm or a heart attack. At first, the driver attempted to revive Lady, and deli workers bought out buckets of water. God bless deli workers. And then by the time Alex walked down, that's the bystander, other horse carriage drivers from the stables around the corner were trying to lug Lady's carcass into a trailer. I was just like watching Lady's mane dragging on the ground, and there were some fluids coming out of it onto the ramp into the trailer. I read another thing that she died in the. It doesn't really matter where she died, but it felt like they were really desperate to remove it. And I was going to say, obviously, all the other people who make their living this way were helping because they want to get this horse body out of sight, out of mind as soon as possible, because they know what they're doing is wrong, and they know that New Yorkers are all watching you, and that fucking no New Yorkers like this or think it's okay. I mean, bare minimum, even if you're a New Yorker that lacks empathy, you're like, I don't want it. It's just more crowdedness in this already overcrowded city. Like, that's bare minimum of why we don't want it. But I think most New Yorkers realize that this is no place for a horse and carriage. So again, I just wanted to bring that to attention. Devastating every time, but it's actually, something that I haven't lost sight of. It's something that I just constantly think of, and I can't believe that it's been 3 years since Ryder passed away, and we're still going through the same thing. Absolutely no movement with city council. It's really, really pathetic. So when you elect people and they make promises to you, make sure they are making good on those promises. And an individual city council member can't make it happen on their own, but they make sure they're continuing to be loud about it. And, I don't know. It's just pathetic. The amount of legislation that is introduced that really there's no reason why it shouldn't be passed. And here we are just all sitting around twiddling our thumbs. It's so gross. All right, let's see. And then, sorry, I jumped the gun, but my enemy of the state this week is Lynn Shulman, because she is the number one person stalling this from happening. But there's a lot of parties involved.
Of the state.
All right, and then I wanted to move on. This is like the anti-enemy of the state almost. And I'm going to give that this week to, surprisingly, Marjorie Taylor Greene. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, I actually, I think over the past couple of years on this show, I have a real love and hate relationship with Marjorie Taylor Greene. But I do want to commend myself, really, because I have over the years given Marjorie Taylor Greene credit when credit is due. I actually have a joke about Marjorie Taylor Greene and that I love her because she's a crazy bitch, and crazy bitches get things done. She was really good about letting us know about the insane Beagle testing that was going on that we talked about further with the White Coat Waste Project, and she was right about that. She was, right to be loud about, the Epstein files and threatening to release them. And she's always combative in a good way when she needs to be with the, her fellow political elected officials. And I think that's a good thing. She is a crazy bitch, but she is someone who can't be tamed. And even though there are a slew of policies and beliefs of hers that I don't agree with, I think at least she's loud and at least she stands up for what she believes in. And I think that's a good thing and a necessary thing. Just someone who's not going to go along with the crowd, whether that crowd is the Democrats or the Republicans. So Vanity Fair put out an article about 2 days ago about this that said, what's going on with Marjorie Taylor Greene? Because I think other people have now started to notice. This is by Bess Levin. The Congresswoman from Georgia has split with Donald Trump and the MAGA faithful on a number of issues over the last few months. In a new interview, she said she doesn't want anything to do with the current Republican Party. And the fun thing about this is there's an ad that is just for sneakers that won't go away, but I can go past it. Marjorie Taylor Greene has long been known for her rabid loyalty to Donald Trump and his MAGA agenda, to the extent that it would not be surprising if she were to throw a drink in someone's face for, say, expressing skepticism over the president's long-promised border wall. During her nearly 5 years in Congress, the Georgia representative has joked that January 6th would have been successful had she organized it. You know what? I don't disagree with that. I don't think January 6th should have happened, but I do agree it probably would have been better organized if she was at the helm. She's demonized transgender people, lobbed Islamophobic attacks, and embraced the most batshit of conspiracy theories, aka Trump's bread and butter. If Politico were to report that she was planning to show up to Trump's State of the Union address with an American flag painted on her face and the words "biological ladies for Trump" written across her chest, people would be like, yeah, that checks out. Yet lately, Greene has been engaging in some extremely unexpected behavior. But the thing is, I disagree with that because if you've been following her, it's not unexpected. She actually really does walk to the beat of her own drum a lot of the times. It's just a lot of times that drum beat is racist. So I would say it's not, I don't think it's unexpected at all. She's broken with Trump and Team MAGA on numerous issues and quite vocally at that. In early June, for example, she took to X to criticize the Big Beautiful Bill, writing that she had actually read the full text of Trump's signature legislation, she would have voted no. Okay, we talked about that on this show. Not great that people are voting on things they haven't read the full text of. And again, that was extremely long on purpose because they knew that no one would be able to read it. But in an age when we have, especially someone like her who has a full staff, you have interns, you have employees under you, you have chat freaking GPT. You could have paid for the whatever the extra good subscription is called. It could have read that and summarized it for you point by point. You have absolutely no excuse. I understand you are extremely busy as an elected official. I really do understand that you're being pulled in a lot of different directions, but we cannot say we're not reading things. That's just not that doesn't fly. Like all but 2 House Republicans, she ultimately voted to pass the version that became law. A couple of weeks later, she went to bat for Tucker Carlson after Trump lashed out at the former Fox News host for saying the U.S. should not support Israel's attacks on Iran. Following a Truth Social post in which the president called Carlson kooky and said someone should tell him Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, Greene took to X to tell her followers, Tucker Carlson unapologetically believes the same things I do, that if we don't fight for our own country and our own people, then we will no longer have a country for our children and our grandchildren. And foreign wars, intervention, regime change, put America last, kill innocent people, are making us broke and will ultimately lead to our destruction. That's not kooky. That's what millions of Americans voted for. It's what we believe is America first. Greene's defense of Carlson came one day after she loudly declared that everyone is finding out who are real America first / MAGA and who were fake, adding that anyone slobbering for the U.S. to become fully involved in the Israel-Iran war is not America first / MAGA, a claim appearing to suggest that Trump himself, given his take on the situation, was not a real MAGA guy. This is like when you create a company and then people vote you out as CEO and take over your company and rebrand it and do whatever they want with your own creation. And sometimes it needs to happen. After Trump's Justice Department announced no further information about disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein would be released and that there was no evidence to charge anyone else in connection with his crimes, Greene said in an interview. It's a full reversal on what was all said beforehand, and people are just not willing to accept it. Later, without mentioning Epstein by name, she wrote on X, if you tell the base of people who support you of deep state treasonous crimes, election interference, blackmail, and rich, powerful elite, evil cabals, right? That then you must take down every enemy of the people. If not, the base will turn and there's no going back. Dangling bits of red meat no longer satisfies. They want the whole steak dinner and will accept nothing else. To be clear, it does not appear that the Congresswoman, who is a huge fan of conspiracy theories, was suggesting that Trump and company should stop fanning the flames of such things, but rather that they should follow through on their pledge to expose them. More recently, Greene has said that Israel is committing genocide, that the situation, and she was, and we covered this on the show, but she was the first Republican to use the word genocide, that the situation in Gaza is absolutely unacceptable and that America should stop providing military aid to Israel. She also insisted that no American should face persecution of any kind because of their identity, including Muslim Americans. A pretty shocking statement from a woman who once claimed practicing Muslims believe in Sharia laws should not be allowed to serve in government. Speaking of Muslim Americans, Greene praised Zoran Mamdani's mayoral primary campaign, calling it unique and very smart, whereas Trump has focused on threats to arrest the Democratic nominee to lead New York City, which we'll get to in just a moment. Just so you guys know, people are creating such hysteria about Zoran Mamdani that he has his own section on the tab on the landing page for Fox News, which I just discovered organically today when I did my weekly cruising by Fox News, and I laughed so hard. There's a part of me that's like, if you don't put him up there, that will be the best plan of attack to not talk about him at all. But I still don't think that would be true because I just think he's polling so well. I really don't see a world in which he doesn't win in November. But we'll see. All right. So then in an interview, what are you doing? Putting your hands in the air, Mike? What are you doing?
I mean, my boy Curtis still fighting the good fight. I believe in him.
You know what? Before I saw the results of the Democratic primary and by how much Zoran won, I actually did think that there was a world in which Curtis Sliwa would win or could win. But I don't think that's a possibility now that I saw Zoran's staggering numbers in the primary. I just don't think it's possible. And they would have to dig up some real juicy dirt on Zoran, and they're grasping at straws when it comes to what they're pulling up on him. It's actually pathetic. Then in an interview published by the Daily Mail over the weekend, Greene went so far as to suggest that there could be a world in which she leaves the Republican Party, saying, I don't know if the Republican Party is leaving me or if I'm kind of not relating to the Republican Party as much anymore. I don't know which one it is. While reiterating her full loyalty to Trump, she declared the Republican Party has turned its back on America first and the workers and just regular Americans, adding of the GOP. The course that it's on, I don't want to have anything to do with it, and I just don't care anymore. In the same interview, Greene said that she believes Republican women are in touch with what conservative voters want, while the good old boys of the party are not. I think there's other women in our party that are really sick and tired of the way men treat Republican women. Hear, hear, she said, adding that she thinks Representative Elise Stefanik, who was nominated by Trump to serve as UN ambassador and then had her nomination pulled by the White House to protect the GOP majority in the House, got shafted. Greene continued to speak about Stefanik. I mean, she got screwed by House Speaker Mike Johnson, and she got screwed by the White House. I'm not blaming Trump particularly. I'm blaming the people in the White House. She then expressed disbelief that former National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who lost his gig after mistakenly including a journalist in a Signal group chat that featured discussion of confidential military plans, how could we forget, was subsequently nominated for the UN spot. How does he get awarded after Signalgate? Isn't that weird? Greene wondered aloud, almost sounding like a rational person. I actually, she's an extreme person, right? And we can't say that someone isn't rational just because we don't believe in them. Because we don't hold the same views that they hold, that doesn't make someone irrational necessarily. Like, I fully think that she's a crazy bitch, but in the positive sense of the word. And I really mean that. And I really do stand by the fact that we need more crazy bitches. And that can be male bitches, non-binary bitches, or female bitches. But we need more crazy bitches. We need crazy bitches to make a scene, to get things done, and to stop going along with the status quo. And that's on the right and the left, okay? Because they're both are guilty of being sheep ultimately once they get into the position of power that they want. Because once they, we can all be very bold when we're running for office, but once you get in office, a lot of people's main concern stops being the people. And then goes on to be just keeping that seat or being able to get into a position of higher power. And for that, you really have to kowtow to things that are happening on the inside, which is why I continue to talk about like making sure we are voting in every type of election and making sure we are knowing who is representing our needs. And I was like at a political event yesterday for some stuff that I'm still working on, specifically with getting women elected into office in municipal politics. And one of the political directors of this organization was really talking to me specifically about how people think there's a through line from national politics to municipal politics, and it's actually not the case. There's a lack of what was the word like that I would really want here? But there's just a lack of communication, I guess, between what's happening at the city level, what's happening at the state level, what's happening at the national level. And that's why things feel so jumbled. And a lot of times states, feel like different countries. And even in a place like New York City sometimes feels like its own country. And there's just no interconnection between different government officials, and it's really bad. And it's why the country seems messy and disorganized. This same political director also, she was so excited to pull me aside. Because I think I've talked to you about this before, but when you are in the race as a candidate legally, people cannot have contact with you, from certain organizations unless it's for an endorsement meeting or something. So a lot of people were not able to communicate with me casually and tell me things that they wanted to tell me until after I conceded from the race, until after and especially I think most safely until after the primaries were over, because they jeopardized their own status, their own finances from the city, whatever it may be. So a lot of people were stoked to talk to me after the primaries in June. And this woman was like, she's like, I've been wanting to tell you, I also ran for office in New York City. And a very similar thing happened to me that happened to you, with this like 1-digit error on my cover sheet for my petitions. And she's like, I got knocked off, and we did take it to court. We didn't have money to take it to the Supreme Court, but we took it to the lower level court. And I was like, and she was like, they will do anything if you don't have a specific party affiliation, and specifically in New York City, especially Democratic Party affiliation. If you are not a member of the party, they will do anything to get you off. And now, she had an actual error, but it didn't change anything about the district that she was running for. It was like I think 2 numbers were switched on the petitions, and then they like fixed it with whiteout, and it was basically saying that anyone who signed that petition signed it with the wrong information on it, even though had the numbers been correct, it wouldn't have changed anything. That even I could see holding up in court like a little bit less than mine, because mine wasn't even an error. It was just, again, my lawyers interpreting something differently based on the statutes. But it was not a mistake. But anyway, it was just wild. So I wanted to convey that, because I knew this was happening to multiple people, and I will continue to compile stories of people that it's happening to. Back to the article. To be clear, no one should take Greene's comments and surprising new policy positions to mean that she's undergone a personality transplant and isn't still the person who once suggested California wildfires were started by a Jewish space laser. In the same Daily Mail conversation, she talked about a desire to keep using Elon Musk's Doge to take a sledgehammer to the federal government, and she recently introduced a bill predicated on conspiracy theories about the weather. She has also continued to demonize immigrants, including those coming to the country legally, defended Vladimir Putin, and voted to defund NPR and PBS. But Her sudden willingness to break with Trump on issues close to the president's heart is curious. Has she read the writing on the wall, Republicans' chances in the midterm elections, and said, screw it? And I did want to point that out. Like, just because she's now saying some things that we agree with on the left or that we're happy to see on the left, certainly doesn't mean that all of a sudden this person should be trustworthy. Again, the word from any elected official should be taken with a grain of salt unless they have a pretty squeaky clean track record. We need to keep our eyes and ears on everybody. After Cory Booker's performance, he's been doing nothing but getting bad press, which is so funny. And as we talked about on the show, he immediately had a book to sell about him, standing and not peeing for hours on end, which was, I don't know. It's just so upsetting. She recently announced she won't be running for Georgia governor or Senate, so it's not clear what her ambitions are. Is she simply choosing to speak her mind and occasionally say things that sound reasonable while still maintaining her unique brand of what the fuck lady? Only time will tell. And there's an asterisk at the end that says, to be clear, she also said she doesn't agree with anything Mamdani says, describing his solutions as insane and socialist, probably communist. And he definitely is communist. Again, I'm not necessarily saying I think these things have different meanings depending on what point in time you're looking at them. But he definitely is communist. The Free Press actually uncovered an old Instagram of his, and it has the word, either him or some kind of a character wearing a shirt that says communist on it in the avatar. So I think it's safe to say that he does absolutely agree with communism. But again, I just don't think there's that much that one can get done as far as the kind of policies he's introducing in 4 years. I think the smart approach is to kind of work on things that are already in motion and actually complete them. That would be great, though appreciating that he was talking directly to the people. And that is smart. And I love that she gave him credit for running a really unique and smart and savvy campaign. Anyone who's saying that he didn't wasn't watching. All right, moving on to Patreon. All hail to Christopher Fungi. Hello. Thank you so much for being here, to our great dictator, Christopher. Hello to our capital pigs. And welcome to our newest cutie, Elise. Thank you so much for supporting this news show and for wanting to find the truth, because the truth is in there. If you want to help fund this show by, all the news subscriptions, help pay the producer and our wonderful intern, Crystal, who has been working on our graphic design and creating chapters for all the YouTube videos, please make sure to head over to patreon.com/withoutaCountry. You can subscribe for as little as $6 a month, and that gets you one new exclusive video bonus news story every single week that the show airs. So really exciting stuff. Wanted to move on to this new segment I created called Something True I Learned on the Internet This Week. Again, this is mostly things that I see floating by on Instagram and some kind of a little, infographic or meme or whatever. And then I take it a step further, fact check it, make sure it's true, find a legitimate article to back up the information that was conveyed to me on Instagram. Because it's not always true. You got to look it up before you start sharing the info. So I had seen that a survivor of the Parkland school shooting, that he had somehow obtained rights to the Parkland school shooter's name in a civil settlement, which I didn't even really know that you could. I guess I never really knew that you could own rights to someone else's name if it was not your name. I know obviously sometimes people have the same name, but this is not, the survivor doesn't have the shooter's name. So I thought this was really interesting, but a really smart way to go about things and to combat the way that we often give this odd celebrity status to murderers in this country. And so this is from CNN. And this article is from June 28th, 2024. So this happened last summer. I only just learned about it, though. So it's from CNN. Parkland school shooting survivor gains rights to gunman's name in unique civil settlement. A survivor of the 2018 shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, now owns the rights to the gunman's name according to a new settlement agreement that also stipulates the shooter must donate his brain for scientific study. As part of the settlement, the shooter agreed to transfer the rights of his name, which I'm not even going to say, for use in any production, movie, book, television, cable TV, or other media. The gunman, who is serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole, is barred from giving any interviews without the express written consent of shooting survivor Anthony Borges, according to the settlement. The gunman, who no longer has legal representation, declined to have an attorney review the settlement. Borges' attorney, Alex Ariaza, said. Borges was shot 5 times during the February 14th, 2018 massacre that left 17 students and staff members dead. At 15 years old, he was the most gravely wounded of the 17 shooting survivors. Borges, who barricaded a door with his body, suffered extensive injuries to his legs and torso, including the removal of a third of his lung. He spent weeks in the hospital recovering. Borges settled his civil lawsuit with the shooter weeks before the case was scheduled for trial next month. The settlement, it notes, is similar to the Son of Sam law passed in New York in the 1970s after the conviction of serial killer David Berkowitz. The law prevents criminals from profiting from books or shows about their crimes by allowing states to seize any proceeds and use them to compensate victims' families. Similar laws have been invoked many times, but in 1991, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that they infringed on First Amendment's rights. Anthony doesn't want to walk in his house one day and see a Netflix special that the gunman was talking about his thoughts on what he did. This was a way we could shut it down. Anthony ultimately has control. And it goes on, but I think that's the meat of this article. And I just thought that was really interesting. And I love when people have kind of creative punishments in their civil lawsuits that really help to change the way that we see crimes like this in America. So I just thought that was really cool, and I wanted to share that with all of you.
Do you think the just because this one really struck me, I don't know if you watched any of like the testimony for the Idaho slayings?
I did not know.
So there was like victim impact statements from like pretty much everyone.
Right.
And like one of the girls who died, her sister got up there and just essentially eviscerated this dude. Was like, you are a fool. You thought you were smarter than the cops. You're a dummy. You're an idiot. You wouldn't be here if you weren't the dumbest guy on the planet.
Right.
Like ripped into this dude.
That's
in
really
like
funny.
I know that's still ringing in his head right now as he's probably having the worst time in jail.
Right.
Yeah,
like that's such a great way, because I feel like the crying, the you took from us, I feel like that kind of feeds psychopaths and sociopaths. But calling them a dummy is really a really funny and unique approach.
It was pretty sick. But that's one where I'm like, that's a person who like, she might be smart enough to read this and then be like, all right, I'm getting this guy's name.
Yeah, absolutely. I just really love this because, as much as I enjoy watching documentaries about serial killers and stuff, like I'm interested in how they solve crime and what, especially, things where women are the victims. Like right now, I mean, obviously I was so excited is the wrong word, but I was really... I was looking forward to is also not the right word. I was just really invested in the premiere of the Yogurt Shop Murders, which is the new HBO documentary series about these really brutal murders that happened in Texas to these 4 teenage girls. And it is so sad. It's one of the saddest true crime documentaries I've seen, and I'm only on episode 1 yet. And that case is still unsolved. I just think, when we focus on the victims, on the police work, on the American justice system, I think we can still tell these stories, but perhaps tell them more ethically than kind of sensationalizing serial killers, so that like Charles Manson and Jeffrey Dahmer, they end up becoming household names. And it's hard. And because we're all interested in I think in what makes someone do that. And so we talk about it, and I guess, I guess it's more interesting for us to put ourselves in the shoes of a killer than of a victim, perhaps. It's less scary, certainly, to be in the position of power, and whereas we will all die one day, we will not all kill one day. And just as humans, I think we're just, more interested in a type of life that we will not lead rather than in the one that we will lead. But I think there are definitely more responsible ways to tell stories like this. And so I love kind of moves like this that get creative, where we can still share the information. But again, it doesn't glorify the person who did the damage. Let's see. Moving on to municipal news. Again, I wanted to just go over really quick what's happening in New York City right now, because we haven't talked about this in a couple weeks with, Andrew Cuomo and Zoran Mamdani. Like I said, Fox is shitting their pants over Mamdani. I have two articles. My mom texted me one right before we went on air, but I'm going to start with the one that I had prepared first. This is Cuomo flips script on Mamdani for owning property in Uganda. Despite its anti-LGBT laws, they don't even use the Q on Fox. Silence is violence. Mamdani recently spent his time at his family's compound in Uganda. So this is such a reach. Like I was talking about before, like they really have to reach to find things to get Zoran on. And I mean, I think that's not necessarily because Zoran's an angel, which is how all of his supporters are looking at it. It's because he's super young. So it's like, let's hope you haven't done that much damage by the time that you're 33 years old. And he also has only held office for like 3.5 years. So we just don't have a ton of information on him. Also, he was already the son of two famous people. So, anything bad he did, I'm sure, was hidden already. I don't think he has done anything like bad. I think it's pretty clear who he is. I don't think there's like a ton of stuff hiding on him. Again, he's just working for the DSA. That's the only thing, which isn't bad. It just means these are not his individual thoughts.
When have we ever seen a rich guy cosplaying as a populist go wrong?
Well, that's for sure. That's my main criticism. The race for New York City mayor intensified this week. Did it? I don't think it did. Only Fox is saying it did. In the eyes of any New Yorker, it did not intensify. This week, when former Governor Andrew Cuomo, running as an independent, called out socialist candidate Zoran Mamdani for owning property in Uganda despite the country's anti-LGBT policies. And again, like, what a reach. The no-show assemblyman missed this interview while vacationing at his parents' compound in Uganda, a country that murders LGBTQIA plus people. Wow, Cuomo is using all the letters. He's really trying to win votes. Silence is violence. I hereby call on you to boycott, divest, and sanction your property in Uganda and commit to stop spending tourism dollars there until they overturn their hateful, discriminatory laws which violate basic human rights. That's a wild thing to say. So then, should we all give up our properties because in the USA because of all the shitty things the Trump administration is doing? Like, I think we should certainly ask more of our elected officials, but I don't think that you are responsible for all the laws in the entire country in which you own property, even if you are an elected official. I would go as far to say is even if you are the president, you don't have control of every single thing that's happening. President more than anyone else, but like, what are we talking about right now? This was such a reach. Like, and again, like, maybe, like, create some interesting ideas of your own instead of making these weird attacks with no basis on the guy who's beating your ass. Mamdani, who was born in Uganda, has faced criticism in recent days for spending the last part of June at his family's compound in Uganda. I mean, he announced it on social media, and it's like, yeah, better to go to Uganda now than when you're mayor. So it's like, is this guy not allowed to go anywhere for, 5? I mean, I think while he's mayor, he basically probably shouldn't go anywhere. I think 4 years is, that's, you can stay in the same city for 4 years. Plenty of New Yorkers who don't have freaking disposable income do it. So I could see that, but like, he announced where he was going. He announced how long he was going. He announced why he was going. It was to celebrate his marriage because he's not going to have time to do that when he's mayor. So I actually thought it was a really responsible use of his time. And, I know it's the American way to overwork yourself, but I actually think, this is, as someone who didn't even make the ballot, I needed some time to recuperate. So with the amount of work and outreach that he did, I think it's good that he goes and spends some time with his family, takes 2 weeks to get his energy back, get grounded, and then come back and continue campaigning and continue serving this city that he wants to represent. Like, Donald Trump is playing golf all the time
At taxpayer expense.
So, again,
He's spending $20 million more on golf this year than would have cost to save PBS.
Yeah, I mean, we're just really reaching, and then they're making fun of him because his wedding celebration was surrounded by armed guards. Yeah, it should be. Anyone running for office, in my opinion, needs protection. So I don't fault him for that. You just won the Democratic primary in New York City. Everyone's real mad at you. Yeah, you need armed guards. Like, I didn't think that was weird at all. Maya Wiley didn't even win the Democratic primary, and she had armed guards last time around. Some including, I think, again, as someone who's had to have an armed guard hired for her, not when she was running for mayor, just when she was being a loudmouth feminist, it's almost like if you don't need an armed guard, are you really making enough noise? Put that on a T-shirt. Some, including GOP opponent Curtis Sliwa, Mike's fave, called him a hypocrite for calling to defund the police for everyday New Yorkers in the past while employing tight security at his overseas wedding celebration. Well, that's not the NYPD. Who's in Uganda.
Safety for me, none for thee.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
You can have a private police force if you can afford a private police force.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And again, I'm not. I wanted to reform the police, not to fund the police. That, that's certainly what I stand behind. And I think if we're going to go after Zoran for anything, like major New York City issues, that probably is the one where you could actually get him. He has some, strategies for security for New Yorkers that I think would work in like Vermont, but are not going to work in New York City. Things that have proven to work, like more social workers and stuff, but you can never completely undo the police force. That being said, I think there was a lot of left-leaning people who originally wanted to defund the police and then backtracked on that. And, it wouldn't be the first time in history when someone changes their opinion. And also you're allowed to change your opinion if you get more information. I don't think that was necessarily the case here. I think he realized it was just going to lose him votes. But, I don't know how he really feels in his heart about police. That's something only he can answer and won't, honestly, because he wants to win. Cuomo's post alluded to Mamdani's strident support for BDS and sanctions against Israel, which Mamdani has promoted dating back to his college days and has stood by on the campaign trail. And that's all we can ask. If we don't agree with it, that's all we can ask for, is that you stand by the things that you believe in. Fox News Digital reached out to the Mamdani campaign for comment. Uganda has a long history of government actions against LGBT individuals, including last year when Uganda's constitutional court upheld an anti-gay law that allows the death penalty for aggravated homosexuality. This is also such a joke, Fox News pretending that it's all of a sudden pro-LGBTQ. Like, what? Queer and trans people across the United States are facing an increasingly hostile political environment, Mamdani's campaign website states. New York City must be a refuge for LGBTQIA plus people, but private institutions in our own city have already started capitulating to Trump's assault on trans rights. Meanwhile, the cost of living crisis confronting working class people across the city hits the LGBTQIA plus community particularly hard, with higher rates of unemployment and homelessness than the rest of the city. The Mamdani, and this is like, this is true, but it's really like they're including the entire thing. It's really specifically trans people who are affected by higher rates of unemployment and homelessness. It's not like gay white men like in Chelsea. So this is a little misleading and trying to get everyone on their side, but they know that if they include everyone, then they'll get votes from the entire LGBTQ plus community. The Mamdani administration will protect LGBTQIA plus New Yorkers by expanding and protecting gender-affirming care citywide, making NYC an LGBTQIA plus sanctuary city, and creating the Office of LGBTQIA plus Affairs. Right? So they're just trying to use his own policy against him. Again, that is a real stretch to make him accountable for the laws of Uganda. Like, that's all you got, and you actually published this article. A little embarrassing, Fox News. A little embarrassing for sure. Just such a stretch. And again, when you have to stretch that hard, that to me just kind of shows, oh man, this guy has a squeaky clean record. That it just makes the whole thing worse to me. And then the second article that my mother sent me is from the New York Times, so we know it will not load properly, which is super fun. And I knew this was 100% coming if Zoran won the primary. This is from the New York Times. Trump weighs getting involved in New York City mayor's race. We knew it was going to happen. Let's all brace ourselves for it. The possibility that the president will seek to intercede could inject an element of unpredictability into an already fractious contest. All right, let's see if we can get any of this out. All right. And there's like so many authors on this article. President Trump may have moved out of New York City, but he has privately discussed whether to intercede in its fractious race for mayor to try to stop Zoran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee, according to 8 people briefed on the discussions. In recent weeks, Mr. Trump has quizzed a Republican congressman and New York businessmen about who in the crowded field of candidates, which includes Mayor Eric Adams and former Governor Andrew Cuomo, has the best chance of beating Mr. Mamdani, the leftist frontrunner. It's not Mayor Adams, which again, he's the incumbent, so going to be hard to convince him not to run, but he's polling still very badly. The president has been briefed by Mark Penn, a pollster who has worked for Bill and Hillary Clinton, and Andrew Stein, a former New York City Council president and decades-long friend of Mr. Trump, on a range of polling that showed Mr. Cuomo could still be competitive as an independent candidate. And as Mike has pointed out a lot of times, a lot of Republicans would be unwilling to vote for anyone who was on the Democratic Party line. So this might be really good for Andrew Cuomo, who's certainly more of a centrist candidate, to be running as an independent. And maybe some Republicans will end up voting for him. Both men have pushed Mr. Cuomo as the best candidate despite his loss in the Democratic primary, which I would agree with, including in a recent Wall Street Journal op-ed. One of Mr. Penn's firms did extensive work for a pro-Cuomo super PAC in the primary. And in a previously undisclosed call in recent weeks, Mr. Trump spoke about the race directly with Mr. Cuomo, an old associate and foil, according to 3 people briefed on the call who were not authorized to discuss it. Again, like we knew, so many people wanted to vote for Andrew Cuomo because they're like, oh, he'll be able to stand up to Donald Trump like none of the other candidates. Babes, They're two of a kind. They're peas in a pod. They're spaghetti and meatballs. Like, what are you not seeing here? And again, I said this months and months and months ago that Andrew Cuomo was going to be in cahoots with Donald Trump. They could have all their little lovers quarrels during COVID or whatever the hell they wanted to have, but you knew they were going to be in cahoots. And if you didn't, you probably believed that Project 2025 wasn't real either. The possibility that Mr. Trump would somehow involve himself in New York politics could inject a new element of unpredictability into an already fractious contest. It remains far from certain how or if Mr. Trump will ultimately make his presence felt. And in recent weeks, some Republicans close to the administration have indicated that the president might simply sit it out. But donors and allies of Mr. Adams and Mr. Cuomo have pined for weeks for the president to intervene, pined for weeks for the president to intervene, arguing that Mr. Trump, a lifelong New Yorker with strong views about how the city should be run, could play a role in consolidating the fractured anti-Mamdani vote behind a single opponent. This group strongly opposes Mr. Mamdani, a Democratic socialist who outflanked Mr. Cuomo in the primary with a message about freezing rents and raising taxes on the rich. Mr. Trump loves New York, and he's worried about New York, said John Castellanos, a billionaire Republican, grocery and oil magnate. Is that the Gristedes guy? No, the Gristedes guy has the last name. Is that Gristedes guy? I can't remember. He said he had urged the president not to rush into any action, though. The only thing I've said to the president is see you in September, Mr. Castamatidis said. I think that is the Gristedes guy. In other words, let things sort themselves out. It is unclear what precisely Mr. Trump and Mr. Cuomo discussed or who initiated the call. Mr. Cuomo has publicly denounced Mr. Trump, and the Justice Department had opened an investigation into Mr. Cuomo after House Republicans accused him of lying to Congress about his handling of the COVID pandemic. All right.
Owns and operates both Gristedes and D'Agostino's.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, I knew the guy who owned Gristedes had a last name that sounded partially like Gristedes, so I thought it was that guy. But I didn't know he also owns D'Agostino. That's so interesting. Wow. I'm glad I don't live in a neighborhood. I once lived in a neighborhood where I kind of had to shop at a D'Agostino because the only other place was like filthy. Like we once bought a box of rice there and maggots crawled out. But it's good to know that he's a Republican billionaire and oil magnate. All right. I think we don't need to finish this whole article, but it's kind of, especially because it's municipal, but it is kind of getting into national news because the president's now trying to step in and decide who should be mayor of individual cities. So just, put a pin in authoritarianism, right? File under authoritarianism. One day I'll be able to say that word without making a mistake, but that day is not today. All right, moving on to our next piece. This is something that an article that I got from my mom, but also from Wacko Laura Lynn. And it is filed under our domestic abuse header. We haven't shared a domestic abuse story in a while. This is from the New York Post, but it took place in New Jersey. Lauren Semanchik feared NJ Trooper ex-boyfriend months before murder-suicide. Text show, entirely disturbing. Slain veterinarian Lauren Semanchik, and I mean, not that this at all matters, but I want to point it out because you can be a really, really smart woman and still be in circumstances like this. Not that it matters, not that her life is any more valuable, but it's just about, I think to highlight any type of person can find themselves in a situation like this. I guess that's what I want to say. Because veterinarian school, hardest kind of school to get, harder than human doctor school. And so this woman's a veterinarian. So just that just shows what an intelligent person this was. and still no one's listening to her. The police aren't advocating for her, etc. Slain veterinarian Lauren Semanchik feared for her life and even spoke of getting a restraining order against New Jersey State Trooper Ricardo Santos nearly a year before the deranged ex-boyfriend killed her in a sickening murder-suicide text messages show. And again, this follows the same pattern. It never comes out of nowhere. The woman, 99% of the time, has talked to other people, has expressed fear, has talked to the police. She recognizes and knows that this man is a danger, and no one listens or talks about it until this woman's body is lifeless. The series of texts from October viewed by the Post paints an ugly picture of Santos's incessant need to harangue his ex-girlfriend, 33, after they called it quits the previous month. As Semanchik's loved ones this week described his behavior as akin to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, classic cycle of abuse. Be nasty, be abusive, say horrible things, apologize, I'm nice, I love you, I'm sending you gifts, I'm sorry, I just want to be with you. I'm just so angry when I can't be with you. It would be one message of him telling her how amazing she is, and then the next calling her an evil manipulator and liar, and how could you do this to such a nice guy? Anytime someone self-refers as a nice guy, they're not a nice guy. Write that on a Post-it and put it on your mirror, ladies. No one I've ever dated who was a nice guy said, hi, I'm a nice guy. Nice guys don't say they're nice guys. I would read it, and I would be cackling how he thought he sounded sane. Younger sibling Allison Semanchik, 28, told the Post. And then there is a screenshot from Rick where he says, I thought it was only 5 texts, but now you hung out with him for the full 2 days when he was in town. All right, so whatever. If you ever really want to talk about it, we can just own it and stop making me out to be a piece of garbage. And then she responds, I am done communicating with you. If you continue to either reach out to me or invade my privacy in any way, I will be getting a restraining order. Clear messaging there. Take care, Lauren. Hope you nothing but the best. A good person you are not. I don't know why he's talking like Yoda, but that's weird. Even though it looked like a toddler wrote the messages, still the malice that came through was entirely disturbing, she added. The stomach-turning shooting that also claimed Lauren Semanchik's new boyfriend, Tyler Webb, 29, Friday, has led to questions about Santos's mental stability, even as he was tasked with protecting dignitaries, including at one time Governor Phil Murphy, and most recently with the state attorney general's office. There was no mental illness here. His mental illness is he's a man and he got dumped and she got a new boyfriend. That's the only mental illness we're dealing with, and I don't think that's in the DSM. The exchange of messages appear to show the pair arguing over a guy Lauren Semanchik was briefly in contact with after her breakup, and how Santos found out about it, including if he looked through her Facebook account or phone. Oh boy. And then there's a picture of Lauren and her new boyfriend, who you can tell is just a nice, by the size of his beard and the fact that he's a little fat, I can tell he actually is a nice guy. You can tell. Lauren Semanchik, but I will say does kind of look like the ex. Lauren Semanchik also accused the state police lieutenant of bugging part of her Franklin Township home, heightening her fear of the former boyfriend. They keep saying former beau, and I refuse to say that. Like, this is too serious of an article to be using cutesy lingo like beau, New York Post. It's so New York Post of them, though. 45. And she did, she's no longer with us, but she did take the guys we fucked advice of, she was dating someone older and then realized she was not being treated nicely and dated someone younger. She's 33. She was dating a 45-year-old, realized that he was crazy, and then, or not good for her, not a good boyfriend, and started dating a 29-year-old with a little, who was a little chunky with a beard, who was treating her very nicely. You just know. Even as he denied that and claimed a mutual friend filled him in about her texting the other guy she never met up with. mutual friends don't know everything that you're texting. Stop. I feel threatened, she wrote in one message to Santos, and then said in another that she was scared because she found water in the gas tank of her car. Okay. This text message goes on to say, she says, someone messaged me when I was single and asked to hang out for the 2 days while he was in town. There wasn't even convo in between that, and I never even saw him. She doesn't need to explain anything, but Rick says, so please stop making this about me being, again, a piece of trash in some level, or how you're going to now threaten me with authorities. I do not even know how to take that from you. Then she writes all caps, I feel threatened. She goes on to say, I am a single small female who recently had water in her gas tank, a recording device in my room, and now this. So, like, unfortunately, I'm guessing her compassion, perhaps maybe she had some guilt, as women often feel, for breaking up with this guy, even though she didn't want to be a part of him. She maybe didn't want to ruin his life or whatever. And so she didn't get the restraining order, even though she obviously needed to, and more. And who even knows if that would have helped? I mean, restraining order is just, you know, if he was planning on killing himself anyway, or as he did, a restraining order kind of doesn't matter. Rick goes on to say, he messaged you when you were still together. I asked you on that 9/11 call, when you broke up with me. Well, I guess that's your 9/11. And you clearly said, well, if someone from my past or something comes back into something, I'm not going to shortchange. Like, oh, she would give someone a chance from her past. I am done communicating with you, she said, ultimately said as Santos persisted. If you continue to reach out for me, I'll be getting a restraining order. Lauren Simanchik only inquired about a restraining order months later in May of this year, but didn't end up getting one after she didn't hear back from authorities, her sister said. And I'm sure she didn't hear back from authorities because she inquired about getting a restraining order against a New Jersey state trooper. Santos sent texts that attempted to guilt Lauren Simanchik while also pleading for her to give the pair another chance. I am still trying with all my heart for every crumb you and your heart that you'd be willing to give me, he said in one message, while assailing her as a narcissist young woman who is a bully and can't own the fact that you got caught being rotten to a good guy who always had your back. You know, good guys who always have your back, always murdering you and your new boyfriend. You know, a good guy. The pair's courtship started in February 2024. And Santos presented himself as a knight in shining armor, sister Allison Simanchik recalled. At the time, Lauren Simanchik was in a wheelchair after, oh my God, of course she was. Men love to prey on a woman who's having a bad time. I've talked about this so much on Guys We Fight. I always say I never got hit on more than after my dad died and I was walking down the street. And also, one of the points in my life when I have looked the worst because I gained so much weight because I wasn't working out. I put my personal trainer on hold. I was eating cake in the morning because I needed stuff to regulate and like make me feel like a person. So I was eating like chocolate cake for breakfast sometimes just to have the fucking will to get out of bed. I was wearing muumuus because I just hated when people looked at me. Walking down the street crying, never got hit on more. Because men love to prey on women doing their worst because you won't leave them then because you're weak at that time. Oh my God. At the time, Lauren Simanchik was in a wheelchair after she broke both of her heels in an accident, but Santos was accommodating, showering her with flowers and treats. Yeah, treats? Is she a dog? He was setting this stage that I was so worried about, and unfortunately, she was desperate to be treated well, so she fed into it, and she liked it, Allison said. And you know what? It's like we're really always punished for being like, you know what? Maybe I do deserve a treat. Maybe I can relax and trust a man and get a treat. He gave us no real indication of how sick of a person he really was. As Lauren Semanchik recovered and regained her independence, issues doomed the relationship and led to Santos's erratic behavior, she said. Santos shot and killed Lauren Semanchik and Webb in front of her, that's the boyfriend, in front of her house before he drove 50 miles away and killed himself inside his white Mercedes, Hunterdon County prosecutors said. The couple's bodies were found the following day. Santos's proximity to power raised eyebrows in the aftermath of the gruesome scene. He was most recently assigned to protect the first Assistant Attorney General and was part of the Office of Executive Protection since 2009, officials said. Allison Semanchik remembered her sibling, a vet at Long Valley Animal Hospital, as the good sister who went into every interaction, every relationship, only ever trying to see the good in people. She was the most compassionate, quirky, big disco ball of light. Well, men love to dim a light, she added. All she wanted was to help animals and do whatever she could to make people more comfortable. Webb, who had only just started dating Lauren Semanchik, was also remembered as a loving friend. Tyler Webb was a loyal and loving friend for 28 years and will always be remembered as a hero, said his pal Jessica Lynn Cox in an email to the Post. I ask for everyone to keep the Webb family in their thoughts and prayers during this difficult time. Guys, I don't. The safest thing at this point in time I can tell you is don't date cops. Until society progresses, you just cannot date a cop. I mean, I made that decision years ago, and there's some hot cops in New York City. I'm not gonna lie. I just would never date a cop. I just wouldn't do it. I really, really wouldn't. Okay. And sorry to the cops out. In fact, oh my God, this is so interesting. I actually found out someone I used to date who I really liked, but it was never going to work long term. But I really liked this person. We got along. It was like someone I've dated off and on, through a couple years of my life. But we had some good times together. It was never like super official, but like always amicable. But we lost touch, and I found out that he has since become a police officer. And let me tell you the way that devastated me. Makes sense. With part of the reason that I couldn't, like, because he was like a little more conservative than I could have married. But I was devastated. Goddamn. All right, moving on to Cuties Corner. My inbox was full of Cuties Corners this week, so I don't know what's going on with animals, but it's none of them. Let me just look. None of them are good. I just wanted to double check. No, none of them are good. So I'm going to power through these kind of quickly. This first one is from Wacko Leslie, who I know.
Welcome to Cuties Corner! Yay!
Who I know really wanted me to cover this, so I just wanted to go. This is from Niagara Falls in Ontario, Canada. This was I'm reading from the Niagara Police, .ca website. And obviously there's like the New York side, but this is from the Canada side. Horses targeted in animal cruelty incident in Welland. So again, not a great week for horses, or not a great, couple of weeks for horses. On July 31st, 2025, detectives from the Niagara Regional Police Service 3 District Criminal Investigations Bureau launched an investigation into a disturbing act of animal cruelty involving multiple horses. The incident occurred overnight at a horse boarding farm located near Buckner Road and Highway 140 in Welland. During their morning routine, farm staff discovered that several horses had sustained injuries consistent with cuts or stab wounds. So some psycho just went and stabbed a bunch of horses, guys. Tragically, one horse was found deceased on the scene. Another was transported to an out-of-town veterinary hospital for emergency care. Several additional horses received treatment on site. In total, 8 horses were targeted in this act of cruelty. The NRPS Forensic Services Unit attended the scene and conducted a thorough examination for evidence. The investigation is ongoing. The NRPS takes allegations of animal cruelty very seriously. Investigators are appealing to the public for assistance. Anyone with information is urged to contact the Niagara Regional Police Service, and you can contact them if you know anything about this horse stabbing at 905-688-4111, option 3, extension 1009-487. That's could be less complicated. And if you want to do anonymous tips, you can submit via Crime Stoppers of Niagara at 1-800-222-8477, which is tips, or online. And this is NRPS incident 25-84526, just so you have the information. But, animal cruelty, it happens everywhere, happens in small towns, big cities. In New York this week, where we also, I believe they arrested him, but there was this crazy animal abuse story, and the animal did end up passing away, where this guy, I don't know which order he did it, but he dragged a dog with his car and also set it on fire. I don't know which came first, because I was like, I can't even look into this further because they got the guy, so I didn't need to. But really horrific stuff, and it really does happen right under our noses. So don't just think because you live in a progressive city or something that this shit isn't happening. It's happening. Next, Cuties Corner story. I guess that one was Canada, so it also could be a could be worse story, right? This is from Denmark. This was a story sent in by Wacko Cassidy. And it's kwtx.com, but it's by the Associated Press from August 4th. Zoo asks people to donate their small pets as food for captive predators. I mean, let's hope this is some kind of a trick. And if you donate your small pet for food, that you're then placed on a list that you can't have pets anymore. Let's hope it's a little trick. Let's hope it's a bait and switch.
You and I had a very different reaction to this story.
What was your reaction, Michael?
I immediately texted Chris Fagan and said, yo, do you think if we donated, they would let us film it?
What? You don't have a small pet.
Yeah, I mean, I could find one in Denmark to bring it to the zoo.
My God. Okay, thank you, Michael,
I'm
for that
just saying,
contribution.
look, I wouldn't necessarily be boots on the ground, but I mean, these things got to eat.
Yeah, I understand, but also, like, most zoos offer like times where you can watch the animals being fed. So why don't you just do that?
I don't know. I mean, this is a very novel concept.
Okay. A zoo in Denmark is asking for donations of small pets as food for its predators. The Aalborg Zoo said it is trying to mimic the natural food chain of the animals housed there for the sake of both animal welfare and professional integrity, and offers assurance. This is my favorite part of the article. The pets will be gently euthanized by trained staff. If you're mimicking the food chain, then you're going to let the animal hunt the small pets. So what are you even talking about right now? The zoo, like, animals don't find gently euthanized mice and rats in the wild or whatever it is we're feeding them. What are you talking about? The zoo in northern Denmark explained in a Facebook post, if you have, and this is the worst part because they're looking for healthy animals. If you have a healthy animal that needs to be given away for various reasons, feel free to donate it to us. And like, I understand, I understand that large animals eat smaller animals, that this is like the circle of life. I understand all these things. I'm not expecting them to be vegan. I'm not one of those, I don't feed my dog a vegan diet. I'm not crazy. But my problem is when you adopt an animal, or even when you purchase an animal, you're making a commitment to care for that thing. And you also establish a relationship with the animal, like that you're its caretaker. And so this is just basically like, it's disloyal. It's disloyal. And it's going against the kind of promise you made to another living creature. So that's my problem with it. And, this is getting a little like woo-woo, but I do believe like this energy and this distrust between animals and humans will continue to fester. And, I do think they're going to attack us one day. And I'm not going to try to stop it. I'm just going to say, well, hope you remember the work I've done for you because I knew this was coming. I tried to tell people in my stand-up that this was coming, but no one wanted to hear it. The zoo points to guinea pigs, rabbits, and chickens as possible donations. Like guinea pigs did not see that coming, you know? After being euthanized, because these animals become domesticated, you know? After being euthanized, the animals will be used as fodder, the zoo said. That way, nothing goes to waste, and we ensure natural behavior, nutrition, and well-being of our predators. Why don't we just say, like, if your animal dies naturally, like, give it to us? How about that? Like, that would be fine, because I could understand you saying, like, okay, maybe this would be a better way for your animal's body to be used after death. It's kind of like the equivalent of when humans donate their organs to science after death. Like, you know, maybe saying like, okay, instead of keeping your, you know, animal in an urn on your mantle, you can donate it as food to our animals if you get it to us like immediately upon death. I don't know if they would be able to trace that, you know. The online call for pet donations is accompanied by a picture of a wild cat baring its teeth with its mouth wide open and a link to the zoo's website, noting the facility also is interested in receiving horses. Okay. Imagine like your horse thinks they're going on a walk and they're actually going to get, I mean, and what is eating the horses? I guess they're going to euthanize it and then break up the meat for that. Okay. And also, like, I didn't know, like, if you're euthanized, like, whatever they use for euthanasia, is that not a chemical that then, if ingested, would be harmful to the animal eating it? I mean, I guess not, but it seems like it would be. The zoo, which could not immediately be reached for additional details, does not list other pets or animals as possible donations. Well, they know if they asked for cats and dogs, they would get too much pushback. They know that. But I'm sure if you showed up with a dog, they wouldn't turn their nose at it. Up at it. All right. And the last Cuties Corner is from Wacko George. I believe you sent me a link to a Washington Post article. I found a shorter article just because we have so much content this week. But this story was recommended by George. This is from Newsweek. Leaving the dogs, leaving the cats. The pets detained migrants can't take. Los Angeles animal shelters have reported an uptick in new arrivals, while locals are taking matters into their own hands after thousands of immigrants have been swept in the Trump administration's raids across the city. The Los Angeles County Department of Animal Care and Control told Newsweek that its shelters had taken in 19 pets from families caught up in immigration and customs enforcement efforts since June 10th. We understand that surrendering a pet can be an incredibly emotional decision, and we are here to assist anyone who finds themselves in need of help at any of the county's 7 animal care centers. LA has been a focal point for federal agencies cracking down on illegal immigration in recent weeks, sparking protests and pushback from the city's largely Democratic leaders who have warned that communities will be devastated by the loss of illegal immigrants who have built lives in Southern California. It goes on to talk more about immigration, but I really want to get into the animal thing. So LA County DACC, which operates 7 animal care centers, has taken in 4 cats and 15 dogs as families either self-deported or were swept up by federal agents. The agency's data gives a snapshot into a growing concern in places where people are being arrested off the street, detained indefinitely, or immediately deported. Animals cannot go where their arrested or deported owners have gone, leaving them in need of a new home. Oh, this is so sad. Matthew Rudolph, a dog trainer and owner of Happy Heart Pet Care, has been trying to locate and rescue the animals left behind in Los Angeles. He told Newsweek that it takes time to find some animals because the only people who know of their existence are the ones who are working 1 minute and in ICE custody the next. Exactly. Like if you're taken off the street, no one knows that your dog is alone in the house. I got involved out of the futility of trying to track down and document ICE arrests and being completely defeated as the siege began, Rudolph said. As dog trainers for 15 years, we immediately turned our attention to the welfare of the animals that surely were being left to die in some or many cases. Yeah, those animals are just end up starving to death or experiencing heat stroke if like the air conditioners, whatever it may be. Working with his partner, Anna Maria, Rudolph has been slowly but surely figuring out how to best rescue the dog the dogs whose owners have left. One method has been to network with immigration attorneys who can notify them when arrests have taken place, along with speaking to shelters across the city. Rudolph acknowledged the sensitivity of his role, saying that as a white man, he is aware of how his presence may be perceived when approaching immigrant families in vulnerable situations. Okay, you're doing a good thing. We don't need a white apology at this point, honestly. Like, it's okay, we get it. I know it's how you're perceived, but you're like literally doing a good thing. Let's see. Rudolph explained that even attempting to reunite a pet with an owner deported across the border to Mexico is an expensive and laborious process. It involves navigating both U.S. and Mexican customs regulations, along with meeting various travel and health documentation requirements, costing thousands of dollars in some cases. In terms of rehoming, we've discussed it. We've thought it through, but we can't. That's such a luxury. We'd love to be able to have fundraisers for that. While the fate of their owners may remain unknown, some pets have already found new homes. We are pleased to report that during this time, 8 of the dogs have already found permanent homes, highlighting the community's willingness to support these animals in need. DACC will continue to provide resources and care for pets affected by these circumstances, ensuring they receive the love and attention they deserve while we work to find them new families. I mean, just think of it. What I liked about this article was that, obviously all these deportations are horrible, and then we don't even think of all the other living things that these deportations affect. So it's affecting animals too. And then also, this is just adding to the trauma that these people are going through. So they're being ripped from the streets, from the life that they have known for God knows how long. They have no chance to say goodbye to anything, including then in the process losing another family member. And anyone who has a cat or a dog knows that a cat and a dog, or anything really that you have, a guinea pig can be a family member, a bird can be a family member. You're losing another family member in the process. And it's just really freaking heartbreaking. Okay. Let's see. Moving on, I want to talk about our main story before we get into Giiiirl. For me, it is the dismantling of voter rights. They're trying to dismantle the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which has to do with so much like redistricting, and basically will mean less say in elections for, of course, Black people, and people of color in general. But, I feel like it's always definitely Black people, and then most likely Latino people, Indigenous people, etc. Same old fucking story. So I saw this on Mother Jones is where I was first alerted to this. So we're going to do the left take first. Well, actually, you know what? There's no other take. So I'm just doing the take, and then I have a little kind of dessert for the main story, which is the adjustments to the Constitution that were made on the White House website today. So again, this is from August 5th by Pema Levy. The Supreme Court prepares to end voting rights as we know them, and justices don't want you to notice. It is a truth universally acknowledged that if you want to hide what you are doing in Washington, announce it on a Friday evening in the heat of August. Better yet, in place of clarity, reference some pages in another document so that people have to track that down and read it in order to grasp what you are telling them. That, they're basically always taking advantage of our laziness and our love of Fridays. Oh, is it Friday yet? That is precisely what the Supreme Court did last week, but the news is too staggering to hide for long. The Republican-appointed justices have decided it is time to fully destroy the 1965 Voting Rights Act. 60 years ago, the Voting Rights Act ended the Jim Crow regime and transformed the country, finally, into a multiracial democracy, albeit an imperfect one. But with the court's quiet announcement it would return to a paused case, the justices are now preparing to take us back to a time when elected officials at all levels of government were white were white and the rights of minorities were trampled. The court's eventual decision will impact how political maps are drawn, which is incredibly important, and will certainly hasten the precipitous decline of American democracy. In its most recent term, the justices heard oral arguments in a redistricting case out of Louisiana. The state's population is 1/3 Black, but after the 2020 census, the Louisiana legislature drew a congressional map for its 6 seats with just one majority Black district. And that was no mistake. Obviously, I don't need to tell you that, but that was not a mistake. That wasn't by chance. That was calculated. After 2 courts found that this map violated the Voting Rights Act's mandate that minority voters have an equal opportunity to elect representatives of their choice, the legislature drew a new map with 2 Black majority districts. That should have been the end of the saga, but a group of non-Black voters sued, arguing that the consideration of race in creating a second minority-majority district violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. It's a perverse argument. Congress passed the Voting Rights Act to enforce the vision of equality that animated the 14th and 15th Amendments. Indeed, the VRA was enacted under Congress's express authority to use legislation to enforce the equal protection and voting rights guarantees of the post-Civil War amendments to the Constitution. Now, Republican lawyers are attacking the law, arguing that equal treatment of minority voters is actually discrimination against white voters. The amendments that ushered in a second founding of political equality are being reinterpreted to resurrect white supremacy. Under the Roberts Court, equal protection has become a sword to wield against programs, policies, and laws intended to create an equal system. The lingering Louisiana case now presents the Republican justices an opportunity to hollow out one of the few remaining protections of the VRA, the requirement of minority-majority districts under this twisted reasoning. Last term, rather than decide the case, the court punted on its final day of opinions in June. Then, on Friday night, it announced it would rehear the case in the coming term. This time, the court wants the parties to submit briefs on whether the state's intentional creation of a second majority-minority congressional district violates the 14th or 15th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution. The court's Friday order doesn't mention the VRA. For that, you have to follow the breadcrumbs it leaves by referring to 3 pages from the brief of the non-Black voters. In those pages, the litigants argue using race as a factor in drawing district maps under the VRA is unconstitutional, and that the time has come for the court to eliminate the use of race in political map drawing. The court is accepting this invitation. The Supreme Court's assault on democracy and President Donald Trump's are tightly intertwined. On Sunday, Democrats in the Texas House fled their state in order to block the Republican majority's plans to redraw its congressional map to create 5 new GOP seats in Congress and help Republicans hold the House after the 2026 midterms, which this is all combined to be the main story of the week. The plan came down from Washington, supported by Trump and given a veneer of respectability by a legally ludicrous DOJ letter to Texas leaders alleging 5 seats held by Black and Latino representatives are illegal racial gerrymanders and requesting they redraw the map. Assuming new lines are enacted, a state with only a small majority of Republican voters will have boldly pushed through a map that gives 3/4 of its congressional seats to the GOP. Trump may be behind this plan, but it was the Supreme Court that made such brazen partisan gerrymandering possible. In 2019's Rucho v. Common Cause, a 5-4 GOP majority announced federal courts could not hear challenges to partisan gerrymandering claims. Texas, and any other state that doesn't have its own constitutional checks on gerrymandering were greenlit to go ahead and rig their maps as much as possible. Never mind that when politicians pick their voters, the democratic mechanism of voting is diminished, if not extinguished. Now, consider what might happen in the 2026 midterms and beyond if states are not only free to engage in partisan gerrymanders, but as the GOP justices are presumably preparing to make reality, free from an obligation to create majority-minority districts. This week, UCLA election law expert Rick Hasen laid out the consequences in Slate. Quote, "It would end what has been the most successful way that Black and other minority voters have gotten fair representation in Congress, state legislatures, and local bodies. It would be an earthquake in politics and make our legislative bodies whiter and our protection for minority voters greatly diminished." Perhaps this sea change will come next June when the court generally releases its biggest decisions at the end of the term. But the court set an early October due date for the new briefs, leaving open the possibility that if the Republican-appointed majority wants to give their party another leg up in the midterms, it could hear the case again this fall and release an opinion by January, giving states enough time to rush through new maps that replace minority and usually Democratic seats with white Republican ones in time for the midterms. Not all gerrymanders are enacted by authoritarians, but authoritarians use gerrymandering to rig elections and hold on to power. Whenever the justices release their opinion, they will undoubtedly couch the decision in principles of fairness, equality, and even democracy. But the movement to destroy the Voting Rights Act is closely tied to the MAGA movement and the Republican Party it has taken over. Take, for example, the man who represents the non-Black litigant voters from Louisiana, who wrote the brief that the justices are likely to turn into law, a Missouri lawyer named Edward Grime. As I wrote earlier this year, in 2020, or Greene, maybe it is, it's Greim. Greene was one of the lawyers who tried to halt vote counting in order to help President Donald Trump win the election. According to the Wisconsin Examiner, Greene later represented a fake elector from Wisconsin who was part of the plot to overturn the election results. It's crazy that this man wasn't disbarred. According to Politico, he has also represented 7 witnesses before the January 6th Select Committee investigation. There are different ways to rig an election. Trump's attempted coup in 2020 was one of them. This is another. Neither is compatible with multiracial democracy as we have known it for the last 60 years, which is an incredibly short amount of time. Crazy it's only been 60 years. Disgusting, really. But I thought this was, yet another thing that it's like, why am I seeing more conversations about Sydney Sweeney than I am about this? And it's so interesting because I was at a political event for women last night, as I said, and I spent a long time talking to this Alaskan woman who's 26 and just she's a poli-sci major, and she's just doing all kinds of incredible work in the world. And I talked to her for like 2 hours. I really enjoyed our conversation. And she organically, over the course of 2 hours, brought up how irritated she was that we're spending so much time as a society talking about Sydney Sweeney's jeans ad. And this is someone who is not white. She's she's an advocate for indigenous rights and all this kinds of stuff. And so the fact that she presented that opinion, I was like, girl, I could not agree more with you. It's a gripe that I have had with media for a long time. I almost feel like, how like there's the genre pop psychology, and then it makes everyone think that they're a therapist. And I can't really talk because I've certainly, I'm basically a fake therapist at this point with guys we fucked, but that's neither here nor there. I don't try to like diagnose people. But she it almost feels like real news sometimes becomes like pop news. Like there is this subgenre of politics that is called pop politics, and people will sit, you know, on a podcast and talk about the Sydney Sweeney ad, and they think that they are, and honestly are really part of like this political conversation. And you know, Donald Trump's getting involved, saying Sydney Sweeney's now hotter than Taylor Swift, which is like all kinds of levels of weird for the president to say that on so many levels. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. These are the kinds of things that we need to be paying attention to. But my thought on it is that we talk about the things that we feel like we can handle, that we feel that we can wrap our minds around. And I think most Americans can't wrap their minds around what do you do when the Supreme Court tries to dismantle voting rights for Black Americans, but you can wrap your mind around, oh, that Sydney Sweeney American Eagle ad felt a little, you know, white nationalist or alt-right. Like you can wrap a little Nazi-ish. You can wrap your mind around that. And that's what I think it really is. I don't think it's that people don't care. I think it's that a lot of these concepts that we're dealing with are so heavy and so big and feel so unfixable that people kind of would rather just pretend they're not, you know, existing. And that's not okay. But I think that is part of the explanation, at least. And so the dessert of this main story, the pairing, if you will, if I was a sommelier of politics, is about how significant parts of the Constitution were quietly removed from the Congress website. Oh, sorry, I said before the White House website. It's the Library of Congress website. And this is from The Independent. The Library of Congress said the missing sections were a, quote, coding error. Significant parts of the Constitution were quietly removed from the Congress website but have since been restored. Multiple outlets reported Wednesday Sections 9 and 10 and a large chunk of Section 8 had vanished from the website's annotated version. Section 8 discusses the powers the Constitution gives Congress, and Section 9 discusses the powers it denies to the legislative body. Section 10 discusses the powers the Constitution denies to the states. Notably, Section 9 mentions the writ of habeas corpus, which protects Americans from unlawful detention. And it says, quote, the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. And I actually went and looked a little deeper into that and, like, you know, specifically what people, you know, obviously this was like not a mistake and this is 100% on purpose why they're doing this. But I wanted to see if there was perhaps more reasoning why this was. Damn it, why is this not? Sorry, I was like looking up why this lady was on a most wanted list. So I also have to go through this. All right. Habeas corpus. What? Oh, sorry. I have a lot of conversations on here. Where is this? It went away. Damn it. Okay. Sorry. I had all this information prepared for you. Okay. So, like, in layman's terms, it's writ of habeas corpus is generally a judicial order forcing law enforcement authorities to produce a prisoner they are holding and to justify the prisoner's continued confinement. It's a legal procedure invoking the jurisdiction of a court to review the unlawful detention or imprisonment of an individual and request the individual's custodian to bring the prisoner to court to determine whether their detention is lawful. You know, in short, saying you can't just detain people for no reason. You have to prove to us that there is a legal reason, and they have to, you know, they get due process in a court of law in the American justice system. That's all. That's all it needs to say. I did further research on it, but that's all you need to know. In May, White House Deputy Chief of
Didn't they notoriously suspend habeas corpus during the George Floyd riots in New York?
I don't know. Let's fact check that.
I remember reading that. I remember having an argument with my dad, who is a, former police officer and
For sure.
ardent defender of backing the blue.
For sure.
And I said to him, I was
In
like,
New York City, did they suspend habeas corpus during the George Floyd murder and protests? Sorry, guys. The easiest way to get fast information when you're live on air is to ask ChatGPT. Don't kill me. It honestly, it's the best research assistant I've ever had. Okay, so it says no, New York City did not formally suspend habeas corpus during the George Floyd protests. However, a controversial judicial ruling allowed protesters to be held without arraignment beyond the usual 24-hour period, raising alarms about constitutional protections. So a little bit in between.
how is that in between?
Because they didn't formally do it, but they just it was just beyond. So it was like
they made an announcement that completely flies in the face of habeas corpus, and then said, "But we're not suspending habeas corpus."
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So okay,
What are we doing?
I don't know, Mike. What are we doing? Or let's see. All right. So in May, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller, told reporters the Trump administration is looking at suspending the writ of habeas corpus for migrants under claims of an invasion, which in the language, that is allowed. Like that's the further research I had done. Like there are certain stipulations where if you prove that you're doing that, you don't have to do the writ of habeas corpus, but an invasion is one of them. So now they're going to pretend that migrants are actual aliens from outer space. Like, I don't know what's going on. The missing text sparked an online...
No, they're all gang members, obviously.
Right, obviously.
And this is a gang attack on New York.
It's gangs of New York. The missing text sparked an online frenzy with Reddit users questioning what happened. They must think that removing those portions from their own site changes the Constitution. One Reddit user for the military subreddit r/military wrote Wednesday morning. This isn't a server problem. This is deliberate, obviously. Another replied, the Library of Congress said the missing text was an accident. A lot of accidents lately. It has been brought to our attention that some sections of Article 1 are missing from the Constitution annotated website. We've learned that this is due to a coding error. We have been working to correct this and expect it to be resolved, the library wrote on X at around 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday. The White House did not give The Independent a comment when asked about the coding error. No matter the intentions behind the section's removal, the incident raises serious transparency concerns. Media's how do you say that news outlet? Media's Touch News wrote in an article. I don't think I've ever said it out loud before. The temporary glitch did not affect the validity of the laws removed from the online version of the Constitution. The Library of Congress posted shortly after 3 p.m. the missing sections had been restored. Upkeep of Constitution annotated and other digital resources is a critical part of the library's mission, and we appreciate the feedback that alerted us to the error and allowed us to fix it, the library wrote. I mean, they literally have a sandbox in Florida to sell us. They really, really do. All right, moving on to Giiiirl. I have a story about Uber and sexual assault. This is such a fun one. I personally, I guess, am part of this 100,000 plus people who were experienced sexual assault in an Uber. If you categorize someone jerking off in the front seat as sexual assault,
Midas touch.
Oh, okay. Because in my head I always said Midas, and then I just saw. Oh, maybe that's a spelling error in there because I thought it was Midas touch, but then the way it's spelled.
I checked the company. That's how it's spelled, but I think it's it's a play on.
Oh, okay. Because it made me think that I was one of those people who just reads things that they see in their mind, and I was like, oh no, I gotta get my head checked because I always said it Midas touch, and then I was like, that's not Midas though. All right. Well, I feel better now. All right. So. This is from Rolling Stone. Uber's sexual assault problem more pervasive than disclosed, report says. Oh, what a surprise. A huge company said a problem that was pointed out wasn't as bad as it actually was. The ride-sharing company reportedly received a report of sexual assault or sexual misconduct almost every 8 minutes between 2017 and 2022. And I knew something was cooking because I kept getting ads asking me if I had been the victim of sexual assault in an Uber or a Lyft on Instagram. And I was like, I mean, I don't know. Should I have been a part of this lawsuit? I guess I should for women. I was like, it's probably not worth my time for the money, but like I should for just women and just in general to make a stance. Uber customers reported. I also like it just looked like one of those like fake law firms. It looked like Top Dog Law or something. If you're a local in New York, you know what that is. And so I think that's why I was like, I don't want to just be typing all my information, but a lawsuit should be a brewing. Uber customers reported a significantly higher number of alleged sexual assaults or instances of sexual harassment than the company publicly disclosed for a recent 6-year period, and executives at the ride-sharing app pulled back on plans for a women matching safety program after Donald Trump's election, according to a new report, which Lyft had already done. Between 2017 and 2022, a total of 400,181 Uber trips ended with reports of sexual assault. That's way higher than even this other report that's at 100,000, and that was already high. Or sexual misconduct in the U.S., the New York Times said Wednesday, calling the problem far more pervasive than previously reported. Citing sealed court records, the newspaper said that on average, Uber received a report of disturbing sexual conduct once every 8 minutes during the period. Previously, Uber disclosed 12,522 instances of sexual assault between 2017 and 2022, with the number appearing to trend lower over time, of course, to give the appearance that they're doing something about it when they're doing nothing. I will say Uber support, when I filed my complaint, did call me back right away, but you know, I think I told this story and guys be fucked, but like, as you know, I then, like, they called me right away to take my report, but then they didn't even, and they said they like froze the guy's account or whatever for 24 hours where they were investigating. And then they didn't even give me the ride for free. And I literally had to then put in a second request going, you gotta be kidding me. I go, the driver jerked off. I'm getting this ride for free.
I nearly got killed.
So, did you submit a report?
I submitted a report, and they were like, yeah, we'll get back to you. And then, again, did not get the ride free.
Well, you should have said they almost got killed.
I did. We were on the phone Alex and I were on the phone for like 20 minutes with the Uber people. And I was like, hey, can I get a resolution on this? Because this guy shouldn't be driving. And they were like, no, we can't disclose that. I was like, you guys are monsters.
What happened that what did the guy do?
Drove us onto the train tracks multiple times. Like with a train barreling down the train. It was a freight train. It was moving slowly, but like across the tracks with the train headlight blaring at us. He did a U-turn and then tried to cross the tracks again.
Wow.
He didn't stop until I put my hand on his chest. And I was like, am I going to get a felony for saving the lives of 8 people?
Right.
It's nuts.
I also had an Uber driver. I think we were on, I don't know, like maybe the FDR or something. And like he started driving, like went to like, do something and started driving like the wrong way. And I was like, I can't right now. I can't. Uber said its tally was based on the 5 most serious categories it tracked. The company did not include misconduct such as masturbation or threats of sexual violence. So mine wasn't counted in that initial tally that they did. They go, we're going to, masturbation. That's just another day in an Uber. Or I also love threats of sexual violence. That's fucking so they didn't include times the driver said, I'm gonna rape you. You gotta be kidding me. According to the Times, Uber executives were aware of this serious problem and greenlit a pilot program in the U.S. last fall that could match female passengers with female drivers for added safety. And to be late to everything. No, I'm kidding. Then just days after.
Who's safety?
What?
Who's safety?
Oh, you're for an alternative kind of safety, I suppose. Then just days after Trump's election last November, the company decided to throttle the plan. This is not the right environment to launch, and we want to take a beat to assess our timing. Bad choice of language there. An internal document reportedly said Uber was concerned about culture wars and political blowback, the internal communications alleged. The company also worried about gender discrimination and other lawsuits, which Uber estimated could cost more than $100 million, the report said. Last month, Uber finally announced its plan to begin a test of the women matching option in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Detroit. A company spokeswoman said the program's delay was part of an effort to build a reliable service and digest new cultural norms, the Times reported. No single safety feature or policy is going to prevent unpredictable incidents from happening on Uber or in our world. The fact that they're calling sexual assault, when there's almost 500,000 reports of it, unpredictable is quite wild. And that was a woman who said that. Hannah Nils, Uber's director of safety in the Americas, said in a statement to the Times, Hannah, I don't know how you sleep at night, girl, but I hope it's not well. She said the company already offers a range of other safety features, including GPS tracking. To what? Track the guy's dick as he jerks off in the front seat? Hey, it's right there. It's right in front of you. An emergency button that calls 911. An optional in-app audio recording. It's very hard to call 911 on a moving vehicle, I gotta be honest. I've actually done it when a bus I was on was getting what I would call amateurishly hijacked. In a statement posted Wednesday on Uber's website, Nils said the 400,000 reports were unaudited, meaning they included false reports submitted with the goal of getting a refund. Okay, listen, I'm not going to put it past you or put it past some people that some people have submitted reports of sexual assault to get a refund. I'm sure it's happened. It didn't happen 400,000 times, okay? It didn't. She added that the vast majority were non-physical in nature. Okay. Involving behaviors such as unwanted flirting, comments about someone's appearance, staring, or inappropriate language. Again, yeah, that's not sexual assault, but that shouldn't be happening. And the fact that you are running laps, Hannah, to excuse this is not great. She also called the reports extremely rare. No, it's not. When I talked about my masturbation, my driver masturbating in an Uber, I have never got more people emailing me or commenting me that the same thing happened to them. So based on my independent research, Hannah, it is not extremely rare. During that same time period, 6.3 billion Uber trips took place in the United States, meaning all of the reports amounted to just 0.006% of total trips. Okay, well, I'm sure it's fine then. The most serious reports were even rarer at 0.00002%, or 1 in 5 million of all trips, she said. Great. And obviously things are going to happen. Like, humans are humans and they're going to behave in a disgusting way. But if it was such not a big deal, then why are you fudging the numbers, Hannah? Some inside, and fudging them by a lot, I would say. Some inside Uber have advocated for cameras in cars too. Yeah, but the technology is not mandatory, in part because of the company is protective of its hands-off business model that classifies drivers as independent contractors rather than employees. Yeah, I mean, because it just allows them to get as many drivers as possible so that a driver is always available. And the best way to do that is to have a loosey-goosey policy. But what I will say is, at least in New York City, almost, I would say, 80% of drivers have a traffic camera to prevent themselves from getting fucked over from a traffic incident. So it would be very easy to also have a camera on what's happening inside the car, buddy. Uber has resisted any movement towards designating its drivers as employees because it would then have to provide costly benefits such as sick leave, minimum wage, and overtime. So they, of course, sell it to you as, come work for us. We're not down your throat all the time like a regular employer. Yeah, but you don't get any benefits. You don't get, oh my God, okay. And also the overtime a lot of times makes it all, the fact that they don't pay for overtime or even like track it is also super dangerous, because sometimes you do get drivers who have been working very, very long shifts because they just need to make money, and they are very tired. I've been in cars with people where I'm like, you don't seem awake enough to be driving right now. And I literally have to like watch them like a hawk the whole time to make sure that they're fucking staying awake. One 2016 company presentation obtained by the Times revealed that cameras were known to be a valuable deterrent. I would say if a camera's on, you're going to be less likely to masturbate in the front seat, at the very least. A world without AV, the presentation said, leaves gaps in our safety ecosystem. According to an internal Uber investigation obtained by the Times, many of the app's touted safety features were in place but failed to protect a Houston woman who reported a December 2023 rape by her driver. The woman reportedly said that she was intoxicated when she was picked up, and she later woke to find herself in a motel with the driver assaulting her. The internal company probe found that the woman's ride started at 8:53 p.m. the previous evening, with her destination being a house about 22 minutes away. When the trip diverted to other locations shortly after 9 p.m., Uber sent the woman automated notifications and a robocall, but she didn't respond. The trip remained active near a Motel 6 for hours with no other action taken. That's also wild. Like, this was like, so this guy committed a rape and it wasn't even well planned. Like, what are you doing? You're leaving the trip active. After the woman reported the incident, Uber banned the driver. He reportedly had received 2 previous accusations of sexual misconduct for inappropriate comments. Are our actions or lack of actions defensible? The internal report asked, according to the Times. Uber's decision to only report its 5 most serious categories of sexual misconduct which does not include masturbating in the car, so I'd love to see these categories, was because the company found the 5 to be the most reliable, Nils told the Times. She added that the company considered including day and time trends, but it wanted to avoid unwittingly encouraging customers to drive drunk, walk unsafely, or be stranded. Right. According to other internal communications, the decision to restrict information in the company's first major safety report caused an internal revolt. Tracy Breeden, who helmed women's safety at Uber at the time, reportedly refused to take part in the public relations blitz for the initial report. It is an ethical and social responsibility of companies to lead with openness and honesty, publicly sharing risks and trends of harm connected to their products and platforms, Breeden told the Times in a statement. She said companies in general make choices about strengthening consumer trust while also reducing harm. With their technology, statistically relevant data, research, and information they capture from millions of users, harm and sexual violence are more predictable and preventable than ever before, she said. Many in the rideshare industry say the numbers of people impacted are low. I say, if you want millions to believe you care, you have to show them you genuinely care about the one. Back in 2018, Uber announced it was ending forced arbitration agreements related to claims of sexual misconduct. The company celebrated the move as a way to increase accountability. It has since led to thousands of lawsuits in federal and state courts from passengers who claim they were sexually assaulted or harassed by Uber drivers. Fun till your daddy takes your T-bird away. And then additionally, New York Post just ran an article that says Uber says over 100 sexual assault accusers submitted fake reports. And I just think that's funny because it's such a wildly low number. And like, again, this to me is very much like Andrew Cuomo trying to get Zoran for having property in Uganda. 100 whole reports were false? Okay, that's not a lot, babe. Uber said it found more than 100 instances in which passengers who claimed its drivers sexually assaulted or harassed them offered bogus or doctored receipts to prove ridership or did not explain their inability to provide receipts. In a Wednesday court filing, Uber urged U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer in San Francisco to order 21 plaintiffs with suspect receipts to justify why their claims should not be dismissed, and 90 plaintiffs to provide receipts or non-boilerplate reasons for their absence. At least 11 law firms represent the various plaintiffs. Court papers show they were not accused of wrongdoing. Uber is trying to reduce its liability in nationwide federal litigation comprising more than 2,450 lawsuits alleging driver misconduct. It faces several hundred additional lawsuits in San Francisco Superior Court. So just like really fuck you. Lyft, please come faster, because I take Ubers a lot because when I'm taking an Uber, it's most likely because I'm running late. And Lyft, like you like give the amount of time that it says it's going to take, but then you don't account for that extra minute or two where you're searching for a driver. And I just don't understand how Uber has mastered the technology to do it much faster than you, at least in New York City. And I know that, city by city, a lot of times there's like some cities Lyft works better in, some cities Uber works better in. But I find that most drivers in New York City usually have both Lyft and Uber. So, just fix that right up, because we'd love to use you more. Let's see. Donald Trump saved Karen Bass's job. That one was just like a funny one to me. Let's see. This is from the Free Press, Mike's fave. I don't know what rant you were going on this week. Okay, so this is by Peter Savodnik. Donald Trump just saved Karen Bass's job. After the devastating fires, there were a lot of Angelenos who wanted the LA mayor out, yet she has survived a recall effort. Why? The recall... Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. We are getting hounded to read out these super chats.
Oh, okay, of course.
So Lola sent in $4.
Thank you, Lola.
2 of that goes to me. Then BioFart sent in $2 and said, please give this $2 to Lola. I don't know.
We can't exchange among super chats. So if you want, I'm sorry, I'll give the money to Mike. But we cannot. Yeah, if you guys want to exchange money with each other, then you guys need to do that via Venmo privately.
We will not money launder through the YouTube super chat.
So we have $6. That's what we're accounting for.
And then another $2 from ZZXXZZ, who said, imagine super chatting for this, as he super chatted for it. So God bless him.
Okay, so I'll take that. Great. So this is $8 whole, and Mike, you got what, 4 of it? I think. I'm writing it all down here.
Ballin'.
$4 to Mike. There was 2 and 2. Okay, great. So glad we stopped talking about important things. I thought they super chatted because they wanted to add something to the conversation.
They can call in if they want to add to the conversation.
Obviously.
But I also, they
but sometimes if it's just like a quick thing, I forgot it. I always forget about the super chats. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for donating. Thank you for your sassy remarks. The recall of Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is kaput. Today is the deadline by which her opponents had to collect the signatures just to put the recall on the November ballot, and they failed miserably. They fell so far short that they never even started collecting signatures. Yes, it's hard to get those signatures. It costs about $15 a piece to hire professional canvassers, and you need 330,000 valid signatures, or 15% of LA voters, which means you actually need closer to 400,000 signatures, which is incredibly hard to do as someone who just got a little over 6,000, since some of those will not be valid. In other words, words, you need upwards of $6 million. But that should have been surmountable given that Nicole Shanahan, the billionaire ex-wife of Google co-founder Sergey Brin, was spearheading the recall effort. It's unclear how much money Shanahan spent on the recall. She estimated that it would cost about $4 million in total. It didn't help that Bass's former rival, developer Rick Caruso, had come out against the recall. He's keeping his powder dry given that he has his eye on a Bass rematch in 2026. But still, in mid-January, in the immediate wake of the fires that devastated the Pacific Palisades and Altadena, which is not in LA proper, there was a tremendous amount of anti-Bass sentiment in the city. Well, that's our resolution to everyone. Fire the person who's in charge. Okay. And then you just have someone who isn't even know how to be mayor is coming into the seat. I mean, like, everyone just always wants everyone to be fired. Like, that somehow makes people feel better.
I'd say a person who left the country knowing that fire was coming is
for sure
herself not fit to be mayor.
For sure. I'm not even saying specifically for this, but I'm like saying it's always the resolution to everything. A Change.org petition demanding Bass's resignation garnered 125,000 signatures by January 12th. That did not count toward the recall. On March 4th, Shanahan kicked off the recall with an X post. Los Angeles has endured enough. Once a city of hope, it's now overrun with crime, chaos, and suffering. Today, we begin the effort to revive the city of angels for the people. First step, recalling Karen Bass. Also, I was like kind of giving New York City vibes, or the way people try to paint New York City sometimes. And speaking of that, we had another earthquake this week, just minor thing. It's now an earthquake city in New York, apparently. Even without Shanahan's money, this should have been doable. Bass completely botched her handling of the fires that devastated her city in January. She was in Ghana when the fire struck and was slow to respond. And when she did respond, she came across as ineffectual, if not downright incompetent. Yes, the losses from the fires could total as high as $131 billion, and the calamity has made it that much harder for Angelenos, who were already facing a tough housing market, to buy a home, to say nothing of getting that home insured. On top of that, homelessness is spreading across the city. Graffiti in LA is ubiquitous. I mean, that now you just seem like a get off my lawn person. Graffiti out of all the problems in LA. And there is crime, which, depending on who is interpreting the numbers, is going up or down. But that's not really the point. In November, LA County voters replaced Progressive District Attorney George Gascon with the former federal prosecutor Nathaniel Hochman by 23 points. They wanted law and order. And until recently, the polling data was looking bad for Bass. When she took office in December 2022, 23% of voters had an unfavorable view of her. Well, I mean, I'm sure just half of that was because she was a woman. The other half was because she's black. By March 2025, that figure had jumped to 49% and appeared to be rising. The point is, in the first half of 2025, voters looked poised to give Karen Bass the boot. Except now, they're not. What torpedoed the recall was the nationalization of our politics, our insistence on superimposing the divisions that have consumed Washington, D.C. onto places and elections that have little, if anything, to do with Donald Trump and his Democratic antagonists. The recall should have sparked a debate about the incompetence of local officials. Yes. Bass is a former activist and House member who, prior to running the second largest city in the country, had never run anything. And I could have done that. And how best to rebuild the city before the 2028 Olympics, which LA is hosting. Instead, the recall quickly and predictably devolved into a showdown between progressives and MAGA, which meant that in a city dominated by progressives, the recall had no chance. There were three reasons for this. First, there was Shanahan, who, besides being very wealthy, was also Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s former running mate and the face of the Maha movement. That made for some terrible branding. Second, Shanahan never really made her case. The reason for firing the mayor, any mayor, is because she's not getting important things done. That's what mayors do. Hire cops, fill potholes, build schools. And that actually is what mayors do, but you wouldn't know it by the conversations that we have around mayors. Concrete stuff that people see, hear, touch every day. It's the most non-political political job in America. This should come as no surprise, as Shanahan lives in San Francisco. And third, there was Trump's highly publicized immigration crackdown in LA and elsewhere. That started in June and stretched into July, and it set things up perfectly for Bass. It was the mayor versus the president, a black woman versus the duck a la orange. It was perfect. The administration, she claimed, was leading an all-out assault on Los Angeles. Just as Trump helped revive Canada's Liberal Party, suggesting that he wouldn't make the country America's 51st state, the president, or that he would make the country America's 51st state, the president gave the Los Angeles mayor a big lift. In the end, the recall campaign never even formally applied for approval to start collecting signatures. It was dead before it had time to take off. It's unnerving to imagine all the elections and important decisions across the country that are being co-opted by the anger and mythologies emanating from Washington, from the state legislature to the school board to wherever. This is the true price of Trump, and not just Trump, but the whole of our politics. All the performance posters and illiberal voices on the right and left who view reality through the lens of ideology and abstraction and a faux populist rhetoric that divides over and over and over. I'm agnostic about what should happen in Los Angeles, but I wonder whether it really was Angelenos who made that decision, or whether it was some miasma of feelings and forces concocted by people without any stake in this place that made it for us. And I mean, I agree with that. You're like, did people in Los Angeles actually make that decision for Los Angeles? All right, let's go.
Can I just register a formal protest against believing anything written in any AP article? I'm sorry, FP article.
Free press, yes. What is that?
I mean, she's currently groveling at the, billionaires luncheon for $250 million for her blog. So,
who?
2 years after Barry Weiss.
Oh, well, I mean, okay, but that's not that article wasn't by Barry Weiss.
It's still part of her company. She's editorial with the whole thing.
For
it's her
sure.
blog.
Her blog, okay.
That's what it is.
I mean, she oversees it, but I mean, there are still other journalists who are working on that who are not just like writing the words of Barry Weiss. All right. And let's just end the show with, a Gaza update. And, speaking of Mike's criticism of FP, Free Press, I knew Mike was going to love that. Because Coleman Hughes, who I actually know personally, I haven't talked to him in a while, but he has been on Guys We Fucked, and he's a young journalist, and he gets a lot of attention. And he released a clip. Now, if we do a short talking clip from the Free Press Instagram, like, will YouTube recognize that? What do we think?
I think if it's on Instagram, I've never had an issue with anything that's shared on Instagram, even if it is dual posted to YouTube.
Okay. So, again, I think there was like this moment last week when everyone, even people who had been hesitant to call what's happening in the Middle East a genocide, or people who were trying to convince themselves that the death and starvation happening in Palestine wasn't happening, or at least wasn't happening at the rate that Palestine, or the rest of the world says it's happening at. There was some kind of a shift last week, and most people were kind of like, all right, enough is enough. And we've been calling it a genocide on this show for a very long time. Because it is. Again, not hard. Just look up the definition. Literally, it's apolitical. Just a definition is a definition. I love words. I love truth. Just look up the definition. At a certain point, when you've killed that many civilians of any group, it becomes a genocide. Yeah. All right. So I'm just gonna play this clip, and I go, this is the clip they decided that the Free Press should put out right now. What the heck is going on? Okay. So here it is. Sorry, my phone is dying. I have a whole folder dedicated to Without a Country on here. And I'm just gonna, should I just play it from my phone? Is that easiest? Yeah, because I didn't link it here, because I kind of just said I was gonna play it from my phone.
I mean, is it on Reels? I'm on their website. I can find. Is it the myth of moral equivalency?
Yes, in Gaza.
Okay.
Equivalence in Gaza, yes. So this is Coleman Hughes, and this is what they decided that would be a good clip to post this week. They love to be contrarians, by the way.
That's what we're calling it?
Well, okay. Well, you actually seemingly don't like Jewish people that much, so it's hard. It's hard for
What is you with Jewish people?
you have long before October 7th said some mildly anti-Semitic things, I would say.
Name one of them. I've never said anything anti-Semitic.
You are part of the thing that you think like Jews are controlling the weather and stuff, Mike. Come on.
No, I mean I said that there is Israeli investment in cloud seeding companies that I have long.
Someone who has time make a compilation of times that Mike has said Jews in a way that felt anti-Semitic and had nothing to do with Israel.
So again, it's if you're playing the word police game that you folks like to play, where it's like it's not about
us Jews.
No. Very sensitive people who have the similar political views to you. You've said it before. It's not about the content of the words that are being said. It's how you say them. And
you say it like this, Jews.
I have a very gruff. I've been told. I didn't realize this.
Right.
Apparently, I make awful first impressions. I come off as very abrasive.
Well, honestly, me too. So we're on the same page on that one, brother. All right, let's play this Coleman Hughes clip.
I believe that in the war between Israel and Hamas, the Israelis are the good guys and Hamas are the bad guys. That may seem like a cartoonish way to describe the situation, or it might seem like an obscene opinion given the images of emaciated children that you've probably seen over the past few weeks, but it's still the truth. And it's a truth that's incredibly easy to lose sight of amid the day-to-day coverage of this war. In my view, the deepest tragedy in the war right now is that both sides have committed war crimes, and in both cases, those war crimes are falling on Palestinian civilians. The truth, of course, is that every war features war crimes, but usually each army commits those crimes against the enemy's population. In this case, the Palestinians of Gaza have received a double dose of the excesses of each side. But here's the crucial point. That doesn't make both sides morally equal. Let me begin by making something clear. When I say that the Israelis are the good guys in this war, I'm not saying that everything the IDF does is justifiable. Far from it. And I'm not saying that Israeli soldiers haven't committed war crimes. Certainly they have. What I mean is that Israel's goals as a country are far more benign and ethical than Hamas's goals. Israel's goal is to live in peace with its neighbors. Now, you can focus on the far-right faction within Israel that wants more than that, but it's just that. It's one faction within a democracy, no more representative of the will of Israelis than AOC or Marjorie Taylor Greene represents the will of Americans. By and large, Israelis don't want to conquer Gaza. In fact, they left Gaza voluntarily in 2005, and they don't want to wipe Gaza off the map. If they wanted that, they could have done it any time in the last several decades. With their advantage and firepower, they could do it now in a matter of weeks. And you should ask yourself why they don't. Hamas, on the other hand, does want to conquer Israel and wipe it off the map. And they would be happy to do what they did on October 7th to the entire country. That's what I mean when I say that the two sides in this war are not the same. There is a huge moral asymmetry between them, and that matters.
Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying that I actually agree with what he's saying about Hamas. And that is not clear with a lot of people who are anti-Israel or pro-Palestine, however you want to say it. There's still a lot of people who support Hamas, think Hamas is good, do not think Hamas is evil. I would say he's saying Hamas are the bad guys, Israel's the good guys. I would say Hamas and Israel are both the bad guys in this situation at this point. And it's not Israel, like all the people of Israel, all Israelis. I certainly don't think that. I don't even want to say the IDF, because you can't say that, because to live in Israel, you have to serve in the IDF. And so just as many American men and women have been sent to fight wars that they did not agree with because they were in the military during that time, I do not want to say that it is every member of the the IDF in totality, like maybe the top of the IDF. But like when we're talking about the Israeli government, it is the Israeli government and Hamas who are the bad guys. I think they're both the bad guys. But the point is, we keep playing this game of whose fault is it? This is always the problem with stories coming out of the Middle East. First of all, no sources can be trusted because we're only getting sources from Israel or Palestine, and obviously they both are going to have a bias.
Why is that?
That's a good question, and it's so interesting because I haven't come across this problem with any other thing we've ever talked about on this show, and that's why it is so difficult to cover because really no sources can be trusted, in my opinion, for this story. And
Does
that
it
includes
have
like UN
any-
reports and stuff. Like there all seems to be a bias in almost everything. Even getting the amount of civilian deaths down to the 5,000 is really difficult with the story.
Well, yeah, because I mean, both sides are claiming the other one is fudging the numbers. They're saying that the UN report is coming from Hamas. So
Absolutely.
Of course, Hamas is labeling dead Hamas fighters as civilian casualties. And the other side is saying that there's no civilian casualties.
Right.
So it's almost like you should let real reporters be on the ground there.
For sure.
And document what's going on. But Israel has a strong blockade against press, which is very shocking to me and tells me that there is probably some really atrocious things going on that they do not want Western media to cover.
Well, for sure, anytime you're not
And
allowing
I have to lean towards assuming the worst when you will not let reporters in to see with their own eyes.
Absolutely. And then because I follow, a lot of people who, are free Palestine, but I also follow a lot of, people with big followings who are extremely, Zionist or pro-Israel. And so that I can get this news for you. And there was among the most Zionist or just like pro-Israel creators that were, because I don't like to use Zionist in that way. So pro-Israel creators this week. So like Zach Sage and like Montana Tucker, just if you're interested in seeing what people are using, those are two people that I would recommend following because they're constantly doing it. And then also Noah Tisby does a lot of Israel reporting. You probably are familiar with her. She's actually probably the most respected in the political world, I would say. Let me see. Yeah, Noah Tisby, and it's Noah without the H, so N-O-A. That's the Israeli spelling of Noah. And so they all report on it a lot, and they all shared this story that and again, it's from an Israeli news source, so that's why I didn't even want to go into it on this show because I just can't trust it. And it was all about how a Gaza photographer was staging suffering photos for Hamas propaganda, and it has this picture. I don't know, I can't zoom in, but it's there's this picture of this, guy with the kind of like the footage that we've all seen of the people, reaching over, getting, I believe it's turnip soup that they're eating, and presenting their bowls and stuff. So they're claiming that this was all fabricated, and stories we went into last week about who's starving versus who is not starving. So this is the problem with stories from no sources can be trusted. And that's why I've called for not that Netanyahu's watching this or the International Court of Justice is watching my show, but this is what I'm saying. Palestine and Israel, they cannot solve this amongst themselves. The International Court of Justice has to step in, and powerful countries in the International Court of Justice have to step in and just say, we can talk about who started this after we stop this. We can do trials. That's what the Court of Justice is for, to find what justice is. But right now, the immediate thing that has to happen is the slaughtering and starvation of the people of Palestine. And even if you want to have an argument, which I do not believe, but even if you want to claim that, people aren't starving in the way that they are reporting they're starving, tens of thousands of civilians have died. And so we shouldn't have had to even get to the conversation about starvation because that already should have been stopped. So what are we even talking about right now? The starvation is almost a moot point because it already should have stopped before then. And now we're having these nickel and dime conversations about, are they starving as bad as they say they're starving? Are you listening to yourself right now? It doesn't matter who started it. It does right now. I think ultimately it actually does, a conversation about who started it, the role of Hamas, the role of, I think that is all important, but it is not important in this moment. What is important right now in this moment is stopping the genocide of the Palestinians. That's what's important in this moment. That's first, that's priority. That's what we're talking about first. And then as a world, we can talk about everything later, and countries can be held accountable for what they've done. Because yes, I absolutely believe that Hamas is stealing some of the aid from its own people. I believe that they were, in cahoots with Netanyahu to allow this destruction. And I was even doing research, like, what would be the benefit of committing a genocide against your own people? And it's like to kind of reset a power structure and stuff. And like, obviously, it's not a new idea. Plenty of places have commit genocides against their own people before. It's a tactic that is used.
Wait, you're saying what would be the benefit of Hamas genociding their own people?
Yeah, it's like to recalibrate power structures. I mean, like, why? What is your? I mean, there's various reasons, but what is one of the primary reasons that leaders or a group leading a place would commit genocide against their own people?
I'm just confused. Like so the allegation is you're trying to figure out. I'm so flabbergasted at the concept that it's Hamas that's committing a genocide.
No. They are complicit in committing it with Israel. I'm not blaming only Hamas. I'm saying they're both. Hamas is not like Hamas is the leader of is leading Palestine, so they should be doing anything within their power to prevent this destruction from continuing to happen to their people. And I do not believe that they are. I'm not saying it's only Hamas's fault. Obviously, it's Israel working. And we had talked about this at the beginning of this, that, you had said that you believed, too, that like Netanyahu and Hamas were in cahoots about October 7th. You had said that.
Well, no. What I said was Netanyahu was propping up Hamas for years, funneling them money, giving them aid, the selling them the beepers was, that was something that they'd literally been doing for a decade before it was ever enacted into any kind of a plan. So it's like, there was clearly long-term setup by Netanyahu around this. And my allegation was just that he left the doors open on October 7th, not necessarily that he said, all right, today's the day, come on in. But
well, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, not that they had a sit-down meeting about it, but yes, I mean, I think there was like some kind of an understanding. And I mean, also there is video footage that looks pretty reputable of Hamas stealing trucks full of food and stuff. Again, these are all kind of like, this is like, again, we're grasping at straws here, and like that's just like not even the point. I'm just kind of filling people in on what the conversations are having, or people who are still trying to make this big stance for Israel. I go, we can talk about everything that's going on later. We can talk about how, yes, I think Hamas does want Israel to be completely eradicated. I completely agree that that's their stance, but that's not what's happening right now. The people of Israel are not being slaughtered right now. The people of Palestine are being slaughtered right now. So what do we do as a nation? These people can't, these two countries cannot handle this themselves. So what do we do as the rest of the world to stop this immediately? And why are we having all these other conversations? Again, these nickel and dime conversations. It just doesn't matter. Like, these other conversations don't matter right now. Because it's almost like they're trying to convince us that like bad press matters more than mass slaughter, and like it doesn't. Does bad press matter? And does like what actually happened and like the facts of the matter happen? Ultimately, 100% it matters. And again, we can talk this all out in the International Court of Justice. But right now, what happens is stopping Gaza from I mean, it's already like just the pictures are atrocious, but and then it's laughable that people don't like think that Netanyahu's trying to take over all of Gaza. Because there's literally a CNN article that was updated an hour and 38 minutes ago that says Israeli military chief warns against takeover of Gaza as Netanyahu considers full conquest of besieged territory. This is from CNN World. Israelis Israel's military chief warned against a full takeover of Gaza, according to 3 Israeli sources familiar with the discussions, as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu considers ordering the conquest of the besieged territory. In a meeting with top officials on Tuesday evening, Israel Defense Forces Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir cautioned that fully conquering Gaza would trap the military within the enclave and put the remaining hostages at risk, the sources said. Such a move, Zamir said, would also increase the burden on Israeli forces when the military is already suffering from attrition and burnout rates amongst reservist forces. According to 2 of the sources, Zamir's plan called for encircling Gaza City and other neighborhoods in which hostages might be held, while Netanyahu was pushing for a more intrusive operation into the heart of the areas. Netanyahu will urge a meeting of the Security Cabinet Thursday to support the full conquest of the Strip, CNN has previously reported, in what would mark a major escalation of the Israeli campaign at a time when the government is under international pressure for a truce. The latest disagreement underscores the growing discord between Israel's military leadership and its political echelon. Israel's military has recommended pursuing diplomacy to end the war, while Netanyahu and his government have pushed for maximalist war goals. I mean, he's literally like Israeli Trump, in my opinion. The Israeli military says it already...
He's Israeli Putin.
That's good. Yeah, the Israeli military. I'm sorry, I didn't want to speak ill of your guy.
No, I mean you're giving Trump way too much credit there.
He's not smart
I'm serious. Netanyahu legitimately was hijacking ships in the 70s to start Israel's undercover nuclear program. Like, the guy has gone above and beyond. He lived the life of a Mossad agent, like similar to how Putin had experienced in the KGB, and he's taking all of those tactics into how he's running a government. Trump is a businessman who has continually done the private equity strategy of sucking every last dollar out of a company before declaring bankruptcy, and we're watching him do that with the U.S. government.
Beautiful. Truly, that sounded like I was making fun of you, but I wasn't. The Israeli military says it already controls approximately 75% of Gaza following nearly 2 years of war, which has left much of the territory in ruins and triggered a humanitarian crisis. Israel withdrew from Gaza 2 decades ago, but Zamir warned that a complete military occupation could ensnare the IDF anew. Zamir's warning once again put the new military chief at odds with the far-right parties in Israel's government, who have repeatedly called for broadening Israel's bombardment and siege of Gaza to destroy Hamas, something Israel has been unable to do despite nearly 2 years of fighting. Minister of National Security Itamar Ben-Gvir demanded on social media that Zamir publicly state in his own voice that he will follow the country's political leadership, even if a decision is made regarding conquest and decisive action. After Tuesday's meeting, the Prime Minister's office issued an official statement stating that the IDF is prepared to implement any decision made by the Security Cabinet. On Wednesday, Netanyahu also met with the leader of Israel's opposition, Yair Lapid, who issued a video statement afterwards calling the conquest of Gaza, quote, a very bad idea. You don't embark on such a move unless most of the nation is behind you, said Lapid. The people of Israel are not interested in this war. We will pay to have a price for it. That's not written in correct English, but like they're going to have to pay a price for it is what they're saying.
Yeah, but it's also probably translated.
No, I know. That's why I'm saying it because I'm sure it is from Hebrew. Polling has repeatedly shown that the majority of Israelis favor an end to the war in exchange for the release of the remaining 50 hostages in Gaza. And that footage that Hamas released of that Israeli hostage was digging his own grave was absolutely horrific. So I do want to, again, it's not like I'm not trying to go an eye for an eye here, but it matters to him and his family. And if that was me, I certainly wouldn't want people to forget about me. That being said, I actually have been thinking a lot about like if I was one of the hostages and like tens of thousands of people were being killed, like I don't think I would want that to happen for my life to be saved. I mean, I can't really say until I'm there. Obviously, like in the moment, you're doing anything you can. But it's, I don't know, but the video was horrific. This guy, I mean, especially when they show you a picture of what the person looked like before, and they're staying in these tiny, like basically crypt spaces. They are not allowed out. They probably can't even walk really anymore because of the muscles have broken down. They don't see daylight. I mean, I don't know how this guy is still like existing, to be honest. And yeah, they made him dig his own grave, and it was absolutely horrific. You go, what? Like, if this guy makes it out alive, what will be able to be done to rehabilitate his mind? And I don't know the answer to that. Obviously very similar for people who have experienced extreme PTSD from fighting, and all the people who have the people of Palestine who have seen all their family die and their home destroyed, and members of the IDF who don't agree with this but are part of this destruction. I mean, just the trauma. And again, like I said, when I visited Israel when I was in my 20s, the thick, people talk about how like beautiful Israel, is and stuff. And yeah, for sure, there were beautiful parts, but even as someone in my 20s, when this wasn't, happened, it was like one of the more peaceful times, I suppose, in that area of the world when I chose to go. You could cut the tension with a knife. There was just a culture of like war and hatred towards groups of people that most of them had not really met or spent any time with. That was so palpable, and both groups just hated each other, and it was just so tense. And because of that tension, it was not. I'm glad I went once. It's not a place that I ever. I vowed then, I was like, I'm never coming back here. But I'm glad I went. But it was. I can't even explain it. You just like when you just go to a place and you go, something like, there's something bad's going on here. Something too heavy for people to live with on a daily basis is happening here, and that's how I felt when I went there. Polling has repeatedly shown that the majority of Israelis favor an end to the war in exchange for the release of the remaining 50 hostages in Gaza. Who even knows how many of them are alive, quite frankly. Gaza's health ministry, meanwhile, reported its highest death toll in weeks on Wednesday, with 138 killed in the past 24 hours. 5 people died of hunger in the past 24 hours, the health ministry said Wednesday, bringing the total number of those who died of starvation and malnutrition to 193, including 96 children. Only 1.5% of Gaza's farmland can be accessed and is undamaged as of July 28th, United Nations data has found, underscoring the tiny amount of cultivable, I didn't even know that was a word, cultivable land that remains in the Gaza Strip amid the starvation crisis in the enclave. COGAT, the Israeli agency responsible for bringing aid into Gaza, said close to 300 trucks entered Gaza and were collected and distributed by the UN and international organizations on Tuesday, adding that 110 pallets of aid were airdropped in cooperation with the UAE, Egypt, Jordan, Germany, Canada, and Belgium. And I will say, I heard reports, or like basically someone broke it down and said that to fix or make a dent, a noticeable dent in the starvation in Gaza, 600 trucks would be having to enter Gaza every single day. So just to put that into perspective of this 300 trucks that entered Gaza, one time this week. However, the Hamas-controlled media office said that only 84 trucks made it into the enclave on Tuesday, adding that the Strip needs at least 600 relief and fuel trucks here we go, daily to meet the basic needs of the population. All right, so that is our show for today. Again, just like packed to the brims, giving you so much information. I know you guys have said you love these long shows. Okay, well, we have no shortage of things. And I mean, I actually edited this show. There was more I wanted to share with you, but I mean, this is enough time for today. I'm going to go on ahead and record an additional story now for the patrons. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to email me, it's withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button on the YouTube. And if you're listening another way, just go onto YouTube, type in Without a Country and podcast, and click subscribe there because it's a helpful free thing that you can do for the show. Again, mark your calendars for October 22nd. The ticket link should be up soon because I finally got the poster back from the artist. It's gorgeous. And I'll see you in Los Angeles October 22nd at the Comedy Store for the Halloween edition of Gash. It's Gash 7. And then again, make sure to please vote for me. Not me. It's like the panel that I will be on at South by Southwest if we get enough votes, because I really, really, really like to be a part of that. I think it would be a really, really cool thing. And that's it. Mike, do you have anything that you would like to promote?
Yeah, August 21st, Anxiety Attack is back at New York Comedy Club on East 4th Street. Head on over to grab tickets. It's going to be a very fun show.
Amazing. And happy belated 1-year anniversary to New York Comedy Club Upper West Side. I did the anniversary show last week. I just love that club. They've been so good to me. And so many other comics. And, if you're visiting New York, definitely check out one of their 3 clubs, New York Comedy Club. Again, they didn't tell me to say that. I just truly love the club from the bottom of my heart. That's our show for today. Thank you so much for participating. If you want to be a Patreon subscriber, it's patreon.com/withoutacountry. And always remember, critically think, make your own decisions. Just because your party has a particular view doesn't mean you have to side with your party. You know what's right. You know what's ethical. You have your own moral code that you live by. And hopefully this show encourages you to be a more active citizen. I know it encourages me to be a more active citizen. So thank you for being here. Remember, the truth is in there. Bye.